like to convene the Single Family Design Board for November 8th, 2021. May I have roll call, please?
Thank you, and I'll start roll call. Chair Miller,
Here.
Vice Chair Kalas,
Here.
Board Member Ara Kellyan,
Here.
Board Member Klein,
Here.
Board Member Motisha,
Here.
And Board Member Ziegler. Absent. Thank you, we have a quorum.
I'd like to move on to item A for public comment. Any member of the public may address the board for up to 2 minutes on any subject within the jurisdiction that is not scheduled on this agenda for a public discussion. Ms. Burkhart, do we have anyone who wants to speak?
Thank you, Chair Miller. If you are attending by webinar and would like to comment on an item not on today's agenda, please raise your hand by clicking the hand icon on your GoToWebinar control panel. And while we wait for hands, Ms. Fennessy, did we receive any written correspondence for items not on today's agenda?
Thank you. We received one general public comment from Dennis Spangler Adams that was distributed to the board prior to this meeting.
Okay, thank you. There are no hands raised, so I'll hand it back to you, Chair Miller.
All right, thank you. Moving on to item B, moving approval of the minutes for the Single Family Design Board for October 25th, 2021. May I have a motion for approval, please?
I make that motion.
May I have a second?
Yes, I'll second.
All right, thank you. Let's go through the items, please. Item 1, 2706 Wester Road. Item 2, 1460 Lacima Road. Item 3, 459 El Cielito Road. Item 4, 860 Summit Road. Item 5, 3333 Bramer Drive. Hearing no changes or corrections, may I have a roll call, please?
Thank you, and I'll start roll call. Vice Chair Kalas,
Yes.
Board Member Ara Kellyan,
Yes.
Board Member Klein,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
and Chair Miller.
Yes.
Thank you, motion passes.
All right, thank you. Moving on to item C, approval of the consent calendar for November 1st. May I have a motion for approval, please?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Burkhart, can we go through the items, please?
Yes, item 1 was for 1 Mesa Lane. The action was for project design approval and final approval with comments. Item B was for 1224 West Mitchell Terrena Street. The action was for project design approval with comments. And item C was for 1607 Shoreline Drive. The action was for the approval of a review after final, and the reviewers were Klein and Motisha.
Thank you. Hearing no changes or modifications, may I have a roll call, please?
Thank you, and I'll begin roll call. Vice Chair Kalas,
Yes.
Board Member Ara Kellyan,
Yes.
Board Member Klein,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
and Vice Chair Chair Miller.
Yes.
Thank you, motion passes.
All right, thank you. Okay, moving on to November 8th, 2021. May I have a motion for approval, please?
I'll move.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I second it.
Okay. That sounded like a perfect tie.
Give it to Joe.
All right, Joe, you have it. Okay. Mrs. Burkhart, can we go through the items, please?
Yes, item A was for 22 Betty Drive. The action was for project design approval with comments. And item B was for 934 Camino Viejo Road. The action was for final approval. The reviewers were Klein and Motisha.
All right, thank you. May I have a roll call, please?
Thank you, and I'll start the roll call vote. Vice Chair Kalas,
Yes.
Board Member Arakelian,
Yes.
Board Member Klein,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
and Chair Miller.
Yes.
Thank you, motion passes.
All right, moving on to item D, announcements, requests by applicants for continuances and withdrawals, future agenda items, and appeals. Ms. Burkhart, do we have any of those?
I do not, Chair Miller. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Well,
And
Chair
yes,
Miller.
yes,
So I'm kind of, sometimes we go through the public comment period so quickly that I don't feel like I can jump in fast enough.
oh, I'm
But-
sorry.
That's okay. I'm just a little bit concerned about the correspondence that we got from
Yes,
Spangler Adams in regards to this Calle Bello issue, which I know came up quite a while ago. And it doesn't seem like what's going on here is necessarily within our purview, but I think it would be helpful maybe if staff, maybe Ms. Burkhart could explain whose purview this sits in, or I'm just wondering if somebody will reach out to the public commenter and try to address their concerns. It seems like the complaint that was made had some issues, and I just want them to know that their comment has been heard and read and addressed, and perhaps you could shed some light on that, Ms. Burkhart, or reach out to the person who wrote this letter.
Yes, I can definitely follow up with that public comment and just direct them, direct their comments to the appropriate folks that can help them address it.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you. That was all I wanted to follow up on, Chair Miller.
thank you. That's very good. And I'm glad you brought that up. It's always been kind of an interesting issue about what our board's purview is. And a lot of these issues that are brought up by the community, we don't really have control or cover for. So yeah, I really appreciate you bringing that up. So thank you. Moving on to item E, subcommittee reports. I don't believe we have any.
Oh,
Is that?
I also had a quick, I just
course,
wanted to
sorry.
mention, I have to
Yes.
step down for the last item. I'm part of the applicant team. So I just wanted to make everyone aware.
Which item is that?
The last item today?
Item 5, 925 Camino Road.
Correct.
Okay. Great.
That's all.
All right. Anyone else would like to speak? Okay, hearing none, let's move on to the agenda items. Our first item,
Chair Miller, I know you announced subcommittee reports. I just wanted to follow up with that and just say there are no subcommittee reports for
okay,
this. Thank you.
all right, very good. Okay, moving on to item 1. This is a continued item for concept review. It's a proposal to demolish an existing 1,688 square foot, one-story single unit residence with a 336 square foot attached garage and construct a new two-story, 4,359 square foot single unit residence with a detached 749 square foot four-car garage. Project includes new balconies and patios. Proposed total of 5,108 square feet of development on a 50,595 square foot lot in the non-appealable jurisdiction of the coastal zone is 125 of the guideline maximum floor to lot area ratio. Project will address violations in ENF 2019-00557. No final appealable action will take place at this hearing. Neighbor preservation findings will be required to be made for project design approval. Project was last reviewed on February 3rd, 2020. Vice Chair Kalas, do we have any minutes from that meeting? If you could please read them into the record.
Will do. The motion was to continue the project indefinitely to the staff hearing officer with comments. The comments were as follows. Item 1, the scale of the garage is appropriate given the size of the lot and its distance from the property line. The board requested that the applicant indicate on the drawings the location of the trash enclosure. The driveway layout, material, and configuration, particularly the ability to have a planting strip, is appropriate. The board encourages planning staff and transportation staff to look at the Braemar Ranch area in regards to on-site parking. And the proposed modification is aesthetically appropriate. The proposed modification does not pose consistency issues with the SFDB guidelines. The lot and floor area modification promotes an appearance of uniformity for the development at this particular site with regards to the main proposed residential structure. The motion, the action was made by Sweeney, seconded by Farrell, and it carried 6-0-0. Ziegler was absent for the roll call.
Thank you very much. Hello, Mr. Howes and Carol. Hi, Aaron.
Whoa.
Yes, Ms. Burkhardt.
Real quick, I just wanted to let you know that since you, the last time this project was before you, that it has been modified. I'm sure the applicant team will speak to that more thoroughly, but there is no longer a modification being requested.
Oh, okay.
Also wanted to make you aware that the code violations associated with the enforcement case have been abated, so that is no longer part of this.
Okay, great. Yes, if you could go over how these items on the minutes were addressed and any new changes, that'd be great. So,
Okay, I'd be happy to do that. So greetings, Mr. Chair and board members. If we could have the minutes back up again on the screen, then I could address them one by one. Well, the trash enclosure should be on these drawings. They've evolved some since these were submitted over 30 days ago, but they should be on there. We had a circular driveway originally, and that has also been omitted. And as staff has advised you, the garage no longer requires a modification because it is within the 750 square feet maximum allowable. So I think that's really all that I need to address. I should say that this was under a different architect when this board last saw it, and so there's been a change there. So, and I'm accompanied today, as you can see, by Erin Carroll for the landscape architecture and Shelby Messner-Jenke if you have any questions for her on planning aspects. So it was 21 months ago for a concept review that this board last saw this. And so it's been quite a long time, but the project is quite similar to what it was before in terms of the site layout, the style of the house, and the size of it. I don't know if you're familiar with the neighborhood, but it's very rural feeling. There are no curbs, sidewalks, lights. There's a lot of horse barns in the neighborhood. There's a variety of styles, a variety of ages of the different houses and sizes. So I guess I'd like to start with the photos PDF and go to page 1 here. And these are the site photos. On the key map in the center, you'll see a tan shaded area, and that is the footprint of the existing house. And that does not have any roof overhangs depicted. Not that they were very large overhangs, but our proposal is very craftsman style in the style of the architect's green and green. So we have 3.5 foot overhangs on the roof. So that's one reason it looks substantially larger. But also I would like to point out that what you see from the street in terms of the width of the frontage is not too dissimilar. The addition of the detached garage notwithstanding, and the house is shifted to the west, and then the garage right next to that numeral 3 is on the east setback line. So pictures 1 and 2 show the existing front elevation. It's kind of hard to capture the whole thing from one point, so I kind of stood at opposite ends looking at it, as you can see, as noted on the key map for 1 and 2. And I would like to point out in these pictures that the house is down from the road. It's not an uphill site. And so it's kind of nestled amongst existing plantings, and there's trees in the background. So it doesn't have a profile looming up over the neighborhood at all. And picture 2 also kind of shows you how the garage will be tucked behind existing plantings, those palm trees, and there's other shrubbery behind that. The other photos show different views of the site showing the existing accessory buildings, which in time will get some loving attention, but not in this proposal. If we go to the second page of the photos, these are the neighborhood photos. The subject property is outlined in yellow. And picture 5, let's see. Well, let's see, on picture 2, that is the house to the right. And yeah, which is not visible from the street. And picture 3 is the neighbor to the east. And that's 2 stories. And both of these houses have horse facilities also. And picture 5 is very useful. You can see I was beating the fog. I decided to go out here on a day when the fog was burning off, but as soon as I got there, it started rolling in again. So apologize for the fog. So this is a picture from the site directly across the street, which has been under construction. And so this gives you an idea of what their view of this house would be, and that the second story, which would be behind that pine tree, is, you know, basically disappears, what with foliage in front and the skyline trees in the background. And finally, pictures 4 and 6 are other houses in the immediate neighborhood that are 2 stories. So if we go to the plans PDF, and so this shows the proposed new house with a limited amount of second story, mostly 9-foot plate heights, 3 and 12 roof pitch. And then you see the garage on the left. Now, it wasn't mentioned in the project description, but this is a proposed ADU on the top, which we're not sure if we're going to go through with that. And as you know, the design of it is not in your purview. If we don't have the ADU, then that would just be a 1-story garage structure. If we go to page 2, so that shows you the entire site plan on the left, and then you can see where the different accessory buildings are located back behind the house and the garage. And then on the right is the partial site plan, which shows the floor plan in relation to the site. And I'd like to point out that on these 2 site plans, all the plantings and contours shown are as existing. So any changes to landscaping and the minimal amount of grading are shown on the landscape and civil plans. We don't have civil plans to show you today, but Mike Gomes, engineer, is doing the civil engineering and the stormwater management plans. And he's received comments on that, so that's moving along. The partial site plan shows the garage floor plan, and in the center is the 20-foot by 20-foot required covered parking in the center, and the spaces flanking that are less in depth, and that's how I managed to avoid having a modification, because those two, since they're in addition to the required parking, don't require the same minimum dimensions. So if we go to page 8, the clients very much wanted an authentic craftsman house in the style of Green and Green. And we took a tour together of the Gamble House in Pasadena, along with a tour of other green houses in the neighborhood. The design inspiration photos demonstrate the stylistic elements that we endeavored to evoke in this house. Cedar shake siding, the iconic Green and Green brickwork, broad roof overhangs, and heavy timbers with a suggestion of Japanese joinery. The material photos show the palette of materials we intend to use. Which roofing material we use may come down to budget. On the upper one is a heavy comp shingle, and the lower one is a faux slate, which there are numerous houses around Santa Barbara that have that, and it's incredibly authentic looking. So if we go to page 5, please. And if you could zoom in on this second view down, the northwest elevation. It shows a lot of the typical Green and Green detailing at window trims, the gable ends, roof overhangs. Their houses are really quite something. I mean, I wouldn't even attempt some of the things that they did, but of course they had old growth Doug fir that was, you know, just very stable and had a lot of time to air dry, and they had like 8-foot cantilevers. It was really amazing. So if you could zoom in on the typical roof details at the upper left of this page. I had a challenge to have these rafter tails extend beyond the edge of the roof and incorporate the gutter, and it worked out very well because it gives kind of a flare to the eaves, which is also a typical detail that we see on Green and Green houses. If we go to page 6, please, which will be the elevations. And so here we've got the plate heights and heights to top of ridge. Let's see, I don't have that blown up right in front of me, but on that top elevation there, you can see what the height to the top of the ridge is. 22 feet is the very highest point. And as I mentioned before, most of the plate heights are 9 feet, elevated somewhat in that section just to the left of the upper story, which is the living room with a volume ceiling. And then also this shows, you know, other materials. We'll be using cedar split shakes with an 11-inch exposure. The different Green and Green houses, some of them had sawn shingles, some of them had split shakes of different exposures, but the Gamble house had cedar shakes with an 11-inch exposure. The French and windows and French doors will be aluminum clad wood. We haven't landed on the color choice yet. And actually, that's something I should have pointed out when we were looking at the material palette. These shakes will have kind of a gray-green, sage-green color to them. And the windows and doors, as you can see in these elevations, have a custom Muntin layout, not something typical. The chimneys and the columns at the entry loggia, or pergola, I should say, are clad in brick veneer, and the chimneys have custom copper caps. And the exterior lighting will be craftsman style lanterns with solid tops and low intensity LED lighting. So that pretty much concludes my presentation. I would just like to say that we feel this house is consistent with the single family design guidelines, and the style as well as the mass bulk and scale we feel will fit very comfortably into the neighborhood. It's been, as you can tell, a long journey to this point for the owners and are eager to get into construction. So we would all be very appreciative if your motion could be to continue this to the consent calendar for PDA and final approval as soon as staff deems it ready to put on an agenda. So thank you very much.
Mr. Howes, I know you've got less than 2 minutes. Does Mr. Carroll or
Yeah.
Yankee have anything they want to say? Do you need more time?
I'd probably need a little more time for landscape presentation.
How much time do you need?
Probably 4 minutes total.
Okay, all right, you got it. Go ahead.
Are we ready for, yeah, can we get to the landscape sheet?
It's in that same set.
There we go. Up one more. There we go. So this is the hardscape plan. The driveway is going to be, as Steve mentioned, the semicircular driveway has been eliminated that went through the front yard previously. The new driveway is going to be non-permeable pavers, and actually most of our new paving is going to be non-permeable. Mike Goins will be capturing stormwater with an underground tank lower down on the site. So that's how we're handling stormwater. The primary pathways are pavers. The secondary pathways are a combination of decomposed granite and stepping stones. We do have a pathway from the street to the front door. Existing landscaping is also shown on this plan. We've got a huge star pine in the front, 2 canary palms in the front as well that you saw in the photos, and also a coast live oak. There's good screening on the west side, existing cherry trees, also some existing palms in the backyard, and a ficus and an umbrella tree, some tropical stuff like that in the back. We're doing a permanently wet stream in the backyard with some pedestrian bridges over it. So that would always have water recirculating in it with a pond at the bottom and a fire pit down there by the pond. And I'll get into the planting on the next sheet. If we could go down one more sheet. There we go. So to kind of summarize the planting in a few sentences, it's California in the front and Hawaii in the backyard. But I'll get into it a little more than that. So one of the things that happened recently was we discovered this site is now within a high fire zone, and it previously was not. So I actually met with the fire department last week. He was generally Mark Fontillo was his name. He did a site visit. We did a site visit together on site. We walked around. He's generally in support of keeping most of the existing vegetation. There's a few things like sages that we need to remove and bougainvillea. But generally, he was supportive of keeping all the large existing trees in the front, the property line screening, all that. So we have the fire zones on here. I did go through the exercise of removing all the plants. There were some natives I had in the front that were on the high fire undesirable list, but Mark is going to make some exceptions on those. So when I come back for final, there'll be some non-native plants that I'm going to substitute back for native plants in the front. In the rear yard, it's more of a subtropical look around the stream. We're maintaining an large existing ficus, benjamina, king palm, an umbrella tree, a plumeria. And we're adding more of that theme back there, philodendrons, plumerias, mondo grass, etc. I can go kind of more into detail if Katie has any questions on the landscaping, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Yeah, and the very rear area by the citrus trees, there's a kind of a citrus orchard there. We're just doing a large low water use Carapia lawn back there. And then no landscaping past that fence line. That's a horse corral to the south. So there you go.
All right, thank you. Ms. Yankee, do you have anything you want to add?
No, thank you. I think they covered it. And if any questions come up that I can answer, I'm happy to do so.
All right, thank you. Ms. Burkhart, did we get any public comment?
Thank you, Chair Miller. If you are attending by webinar and would like to comment on this item, please raise your hand by clicking the hand icon on your GoToWebinar control panel. And while we wait for hands, Ms. Fennessy, did we receive any written correspondence for this item?
Thank you. We did not receive any written correspondence for this item.
Okay, thank you. There are no hands raised, so I'll hand it back to you, Chair Miller, for questions.
All right, thank you. Vice Chair Kalas, do you have any questions, please?
I do. I have two questions for the applicant, and I'm looking at my other screen here because I was trying to scroll back to page 5 that shows eave details and overhangs. So given the fact that this has now been incorporated into high fire zones, Mr. House, I'm assuming that all of the, and it looks like they do, but I just want to confirm that the detailing that you've illustrated here for the eave and rake details, I just want to confirm that that's compliant with high fire zone requirements given the length of the eaves.
Yes, the only thing I have to change is to incorporate some 5/8 drywall above the sheathing in the eaves. And the California Residential Code does not require that the rakes be similarly treated on the gables. So very minimal change. And then I should also say that I was immediately concerned about our choice of cedar shakes because I had checked this out with the fire department back in March. And for some reason, the gentleman I talked to seemed to be unaware that just the month before City Council had expanded the boundaries of the high fire hazard zones. So it wasn't until just very recently we found out we were in. But these shakes, as long as they're fire retardant impregnated, are Class B and don't even need sheetrock behind them. So they do comply. They wouldn't be accessible for roofing. I mean, acceptable for roofing, but they are for siding.
Interesting. Okay, great. And then the other question that I had was related to your comment about the garage and the ADU. And this may be something that we need staff's clarification on, but so the project that we have in front of us is, you know, the main residence and a 2-story structure associated with it, detached. But I think I heard you say that you're not sure whether the client is going to pursue the 2nd story on the detached structure.
Correct.
So I guess given the request for us to give project design approval and move this forward to consent calendar for final, that leaves a question in my mind as to what we're actually reviewing in regards to the detached structure. So perhaps staff could give us some clarification on that.
Well, I can tell you it's not on the agenda for a PDA today because staff has to complete their final review before they can agendize it for that.
Right. Yeah, I understand.
All right,
Okay.
Chair Miller and to Vice Chair Kalas and the rest of the board. The project is just here for a concept review today. When it comes back for final or for a project approval, I do believe that decision will need to be made whether or not the ADU is going to be part of the plan set. So we'll work on resolving that issue before we come back again.
Okay. Those were the only questions that I had.
All right, thank you. Board Member Ara Kelly, do you have any questions, please?
I do. I apologize if you had already mentioned this in your presentation. I just wanted confirmation that the most recent, the last plan set that was presented to the board was dated February 2020. Is that correct?
That's correct. And like I said, that was by a different architect.
Okay. Were there any, for the main house, was there an increase in square footage since that previous plan set?
Yes, it has increased in size. Not very much from east to west. Most of the added square footage is behind the house to the south.
Do you happen to know how much square footage? I'm asking because I'm looking at the FAR and just trying to see how much has changed. I know it's maybe hard to quantify it.
I don't have that figure available right now, but I can tell you I did a survey of neighborhood properties, and it wasn't exhaustive because I haven't gone to the assessor's office to look for information there. But the highest FAR I found in the neighborhood was 151%. And there are several over 100%. So it's not the exception in the neighborhood. And this lot is 1.25 acres, I believe. And so it's nearly 7 times the size of a 15,000 square foot lot where the FAR would be a required 85%.
Thanks for that. I do have a question about the detached structure, but I guess I'll wait for that until the next meeting. So that's all I have.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Board Member Klein, do you have any questions, please?
Just one. It seems like there's no trees being removed. Is that correct?
Sorry, yeah, I didn't touch on that. There's one king palm in the rear yard being removed. We are transplanting some of the existing giant bird of paradise in the rear yard. What else was there? There's nothing native being removed.
And everything large seems to be protected.
There's a few fruit trees on the west side being removed. But yeah, the owners really want to maintain as much existing trees as they can. So those are a few minor removals in the backyard.
Sounds good. That's my only question. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Board Member Motisha, do you have any questions, please?
I am. I think I am. I'm not that. I've seen a few greenhouses down in Pasadena. Do greenhouses have that many walls that are 2-story straight up? Are they more stepped back? I'm referring to the front elevation with that gabled roof. That's a 2-story. That's vertically 2-story, and then also your ADU on top of, at least right now, is 2-story. Looks.
Yes, in fact, they do. And if we could go back to the, let's see, the page with, there you go. You can see that upper right picture right there has got a 2-story gable end elevation. And there are numerous examples of it.
Yeah. This is a picture of a house, what, in Pasadena or a?
Correct. This is from the walking tour of the neighborhood where we saw numerous different greenhouses.
No, I don't have any more questions. Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you. Board Member Ziegler, do you have any questions, please? You're muted.
Yeah, we can't hear you.
I missed the early part of the meeting, so I don't think it's appropriate for me to ask a question now. Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you. I was just going online and trying to help address Mr. Motisha's concern. There was a house I was just looking at here. This is built in El Cerrito by the Green and Green, and it pretty much takes off a lot of what you're trying to achieve. Anyway, I just found that interesting. I have no questions, so I'll move on to comments. Board Member Kloss, do you have any comments, please?
Chair Miller, can I interrupt
Yes.
before we get into comments? I just, because we have 3 new board members as of 2021, I just wanted to confirm with Vice Chair Kloss, Board Member Klein, and Board Member Arkelian that they have reviewed the plans, minutes, and the video of the previous meeting.
I did review the plans and minutes. I did not review the video.
Okay,
I was able to review it as well.
okay,
Yeah.
I was able to review all.
okay. Thank you.
I have another question, if I could,
Yes.
Chairman. I think somebody, Steve, commented this house is not very much different than the house previous.
I mean, to say it was not too different from what the previous architect presented to you. It's
What's
quite a
that?
bit different than the existing house.
Oh, yeah, okay. No, you're good. Can we see, just a quick review of just floor plan, site plan, and 4 elevations of the previous design that we approved?
I don't have those available.
Are they up-
And
Ms. Burkhardt, are they
there you
available?
go.
That's them right there. That's the plan.
Okay, this is the
The
previous.
circular driveway there.
Yeah.
Detached garage. 2-story section in the same location.
We look at an elevation and do we have that elevation? It's just a front elevation if we have one. Oh, yes, okay. Now see, we have a couple 2 stories. No, that's fine. Thank you. That's what I wanted to see. You're pretty close to, looking, it's changed a little bit, but it looks very much like the one you have presented to us today. Thank you.
All right. Board Member Kloss, do you have any comments, please?
I really don't have any substantial comments except to say that I can support this project. I think that contextually relative to the neighborhood and the size of the lot, I did drive out here. I did drive the neighborhood, and I think that clearly the parcel can handle a home of this nature. I think it's a very high quality project that we're looking at. And so I would be able to support the FAR that is over and above guideline because of the size of the parcel and the nature of the project in front of us. There's many 2-story homes that are relatively large in the neighborhood. The parcel that I think is immediately to the west is primarily a 1-story residence, but it's a very rambling hacienda type of Mediterranean home. And so it sprawls on the property. And so I don't have any problem supporting this project, and I think it's detailed very nicely, and it's very reflective of the green and green style. And I don't have any problem with the 2-story element. In fact, if you look at the front of the Gamble house, it's the closest element on that house to the street is a 2-story element. So with a gable end facing the street. So I'm supportive of the project and have no further comments.
All right, thank you. Board Member Arkelian, do you have any comments, please?
I do. I know the applicant has mentioned, kind of a rough idea of the FARs of the surrounding area. I understand the FAR is a guideline, and as much as I think that the lot can tolerate this proposed development, I'm still interested in seeing, what is the FAR of the adjacent properties, for example. We'd like to see how much over it is. I think it would be helpful anyway. Otherwise, I did drive by the property. I'm interested in hearing from Board Member Klein if she believes the screening is sufficient from street view. But other than that, I do agree with Vice Chair Colossus' comments. It's a nice design and very well thought out. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Board Member Klein, do you have any comments, please?
Yes, I think that the mass bulk and scale works as well because it's such a large parcel and it works within the neighborhood. And it's very high quality materials, and due diligence was done already with the fire. So I'm confident that the planting will work within the fire zone, and also the water use calcs look fine. And I know you're required to do that with the city as well as the stormwater. So positive comments on my end.
All right.
And
thank you very much. Yes.
also to address Board Member Arkelian comment, I do think it's sufficient screening. There's large trees in the front of the property that really help with the elevation of the architecture.
All right, great. Thank you. Board Member Motisha, do you have any comments, please?
No, other than I support the project. I think it's a very nice design. Yeah, large lot. FARs are fine with me. I would like to see if they're going to retain that two-story garage with the ADU on top of it at their next presentation. And with the second floor above the garage, I don't think it looks out of scale. We're looking, as long as there's a lot of vegetation in the front. I don't think we need to screen the whole house. It's nice to look at the house, but with some vegetation, we could screen some of the 2 stories that are maybe a little bit out of scale, but they're fine. Thank you.
All right, thank you. The only comments I have is great. I think it's beautiful. I wouldn't want to see this house screened. I'd love to see it shine. I think it's a fabulous piece of architecture. I think it would be a huge contribution to the neighborhood in terms of the craftsmanship. The only concern or thought I have is, Mr. House, is when the clients do finally construct this house, studying Green and Green, they were in partnership with a mill company and cabinet makers, and they did a lot of the detailing. So I think something to look at and consider is a partnership with perhaps some type of woodworkers that are familiar with cabinetry in executing detailing to achieve that authentic look you're trying to achieve. But yeah, I think it's a beautiful project. I completely support it. And those are my only comments. With that being said, they're here for comments only. Would someone like to entertain a motion?
I'll go for it.
All right.
Okay. And if I'm out of turn here, please, anybody feel free to raise their hands or request a revision. Generally speaking, the board is not generally speaking, but the board is in favor of the project and feels that the architecture represented and the quality of design is of the highest nature. And the board appreciates the fact that a lot of the native vegetation is being retained on site. The board feels that sufficient screening is provided both on the east side of the parcel as well as in the front in order to relate well to the massing of the residents. The board would like to request that when the applicant return, that they provide us with FARs for the immediately adjacent parcels. But in general, the board can support the increase in FAR over guideline based upon the quality of the architecture and the size of the parcel. Those would be my comments. Is there anything that anybody would want to add?
Well, let me get a second and then we can get comments. Do I have a second, please?
I second.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes,
Um,
who's that?
Sure,
Mr.
sure
House,
would
yes.
appreciate it if it could be forwarded to consent calendar for PDA and final, and we'd be happy to provide the FARs of the other properties at that time. We'll do some more research and get info from the assessor's office as well, so they're more accurate representations.
Thank you, Mr. House. I appreciate your comment. The only concern I have with that is because of the amount of detailing and fine detailing. I'd like to see this as a full board review. I think you're going to get through very well, but I'll leave it to the motion maker of the motion as to your feeling on that.
Yeah, I concur with Chair Miller, Mr. House, just because, even more so because of the undecided nature of the detached residence. I think if we lose the ADU, we would want to see what happens with that from a massing standpoint in terms of roof lines. So we would be looking for this to return to full board for project design approval.
That's fine, and hopefully you would be pleased with it, and I'd be able to get final approval at the same time, so.
Yeah, I'd be happy to add to the motion that we would anticipate being able to give it project design approval and or final approval at the next meeting, given what we've seen today.
And Mr. Chair, I could not agree with you more about a collaboration with artisans and craftsmen, and we have a very good contractor on board. And I just happened to meet a mason who has done masonry like this of the skintled clinker bricks. So we look forward to pulling off some of the details.
This is like a team job for sure. Anyway, so I think we're done with the motion. We had a second. May I have a roll call, please? Is that correct?
I think we need to have the amendments to the motion seconded.
Okay, thank you. Does the seconder agree with the amendments to the motion?
I second, yes.
Okay, thank you. May I have a roll call, please?
Thank you, and I'll start the roll call vote. Vice Chair Kalas,
Yes.
Board Member Ara Kellyan,
Yes.
Board Member Klein,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
Board Member Ziegler abstains, and Chair Miller.
Yes,
Thank you. The motion passes.
Thank you all.
you're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's move on to item 2. Okay, is 105 Mesa Lane. This is the new item for concept review. Project consists of new additions and a remodel to an existing 1,985 square foot, 2-story single-family residence. These include: 1, add a new 543 square foot attached garage, a 257 square foot first floor addition, and a 366 square foot second story addition with 186 square feet of new decks. 2, remove existing driveway at east side of property, provide new garage access off existing driveway easement on south side of property. 3, convert existing garage and loft space into a new 659 square foot accessory dwelling unit with 53 square foot deck. The project requires front setback modification to allow a portion of the new garage to be located in the front setback, and an open yard modification to allow the required 1,250 square foot of open yard to be split into 2 separate areas. No final appealable action will take place at this hearing. Neighborhood preservation findings will be required to be made for the project design approval. Do we have a representative for this project, please?
Yes, we do. Thank you, Chair Miller and board members. It's Bill Wolf with Pacific Architects, and Ralph Fowler, landscape architect, will also be here to present the landscaping.
Okay, I hear your voice.
If I
Yes.
could interrupt,
Yes.
I'll try to work with Mr. Wolf on his webcam. This project also has a case planner who's here with us today, Robert Dostalek. He may want to introduce the project ahead of the applicant. So I'll give him the floor if he would like.
Sure, just a few words. Good afternoon, board members. I'm Robert Dostalek, planner with community development, and I'm working on this case as well. And just wanted to reiterate the request for the two zoning modifications that are requested. One is for a front setback modification, and that would be to reduce a component of the proposed garage down to 9 feet. It would encroach into the 20-foot setback by 9 feet and 3 inches. And you'll see that when Mr. Wolf walks you through the plans. And then also the open yard is proposed to be provided in 2 separate locations. However, they would be meeting the 1250 square foot minimum. And I just wanted to point out that due to the residence's orientation, the close proximity to Mesa Lane, a proposed FAR of 85%, and the zoning modifications, we're really looking for some input on from the SFDB for this project. Staff hasn't provided any supportability comments as of yet, as it relates to the modifications. So we're looking forward to some input from the board. And that's all I wanted to open up with. And I'll be on the sidelines for questions if needed.
All right, thank you. If Mr. Wolf, would you like to present your project?
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair Miller. So this is a project on Mesa Lane. It's right there at the top of the stairs that lead you down to the beach. It's a very, I would say, well, what we're taking is the existing house and we're expanding on it, but we're trying to keep the general flavor and style of the houses that are there, and that are in the neighborhood. There are 4 or 5 other homes that have a similar design. There's sort of a shed-shaped board and bat, wood-sided, very, well, I wouldn't say quite sea ranch, but that's sort of the vernacular, I guess, to a certain degree. And what we're doing, if we can, well, look, while we're on this page here, you can see we're 85% FAR. We're creating a fairly modest 659 square foot ADU out of an existing garage. And if we go to the site plan there real quick, which is the next page, and zoom into that, perfect, thank you. What we're doing is, so currently the existing garage exists up on the upper portion of the drawing there. And the driveway comes in off of Mesa Lane, which is a very busy street, as you know. And it's very active with parking for people who are going to walk down to the beach access trail, which you can see there at the bottom right corner. Sorry about that noise. So what we're doing is we're proposing to add a single-story garage addition that will now have access off of the private shared driveway. So that private shared driveway comes in and that services actually a grouping of 5 homes and the house to the north. And so this access drive then leads you into a driveway that will then take us into the new garage area. And what really the goal is try to eliminate that back out and the parking pull off that comes off of Mesa Lane. The owners have expressed the concern that at some point in time they might back over somebody because it's really not a very clear visibility as you pull out of that garage. So that's the element that becomes the ADU. And then this addition that we're doing that actually does encroach into the setback becomes the garage. And we had a small portion of second story on top. The grayed areas that you see there, the darker gray is actually the additions. So we're adding a little bit to the ground floor, a little bit to the back of the garage, and then this addition of the garage itself. If we can go to the next page, I can show you. And I'll let you, Rob Fowler will walk you through some of the other elements of this project. So let's go to the second one. That kind of shows you the neighborhood there. If you go to the next page, this page represents all the houses that you can see, and actually zoom out again a little bit if you would. Those houses that are shaded are all houses that are within the setback of 20 feet. And they vary from 5 feet to 8 feet. So we're in keeping with some of the other single-story homes that are in that area. And our portion that is actually in the setback is single-story. So we go to the next page.
What is that? Oh,
I have no idea. You know what? I'd like to, anyway, it just started. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, it's very distracting.
Mr. Wolf, Mr.
yeah.
Wolf, I think your previous architectural office next door is getting a remodel and you're hearing power tools.
I think so, exactly. And I apologize for that. Let me, hey, Joaquin, could you go stop doing that? I can't concentrate. It's really hard. Anyway, so this here shows you, a good portion of the existing footprint of the house is there. The area of the garage, the 2 garages that are added, again, single story, portion right there is encroaching into the setback. Again, I'm kind of seeing that as a side yard setback in a way, and making our front yard come off the drive. Let's go to the next page. You'll see. That's the existing lower floor. And you can see kind of where we're adding that garage into the setback area. Again, other houses that are in the neighborhood on that street on Mesa Lane. Go to the next page, please. And here is where we're taking the upper garage area and creating a ADU out of that. It's got a small deck off of it now. And then the upper floor, we're going to add a little bit of square footage to the master bedroom and bath. And then a small area of a gym that's going to go over the garage. And that area is actually outside the setback. So the second story is all outside the setback. Let's go to the next page. That's the existing upper floor. So you can see to the right there is where we're adding a small gym and a little addition to the master bedroom. Next page. That's next page again. That's the original upper floor. Here's a new roof plan. And let's go to the next. So as you can see, and I don't know if we haven't looked at the site photos, but we can do that next. But it's a series of sheds. The existing style of the house is going to be maintained. And if you know that area pretty well too, there's 4 or 5 other houses that have the same vernacular. It's this board and bat siding, shed shape, single glaze window, or not single glaze, but single light window. And the grayed area there that's dark is the area that's actually in the setback. This is showing just the new elevations. So again, we're going to keep that same vernacular through the new residence. Let's go to the next page, please. And there's again a same elevation covering, different, more or less the same kind of style. The balconies, there was a balcony off the master, so we're just kind of enhancing that, and we're adding a small balcony off of the gym upstairs. And there's the 2-car garage. One of the things we're doing is we're taking the garage that faces the street as well, which is Mesa Lane, and taking that away. We're facing it toward this private drive, which is behind a gate. So I know that's one of the elements that we try to do, is keep the garages off the face of the street. And you'll see in Rob's drawings too, how we're going to try and keep it very pedestrian feel and landscape that area in the front. Real quickly back to the site plan, which was, I think, the second page in, and I can quickly show you where the Yeah, here we go. So because of the shape of this lot and the house and the position of the house on the lot, it's hard to get, and it didn't even comply before with open yard. We were able to get more than 1,250 square feet open yard, but we have to do it in in two portions. So that's the other part of the request to modification. So the front portion where you see 400 open yard right in there, you can clearly see we have a lot more than 400, but there's 400 there, and then there's 1,100 in the back by the permeable paver area. And again, we have more than that, but we have to separate it. It's not contiguous. So with that, I'll turn it over to Rob Fowler to describe the landscaping for you. Rob, you're muted, I think. Can't hear you, Rob. There we go.
Green light on, so it says it's working. Can we, so that's not it.
The L, there's a single L sheet, I think there we go.
Yeah, it is. Maybe we can even scroll in on that. To some degree. You know, so I tried to, so I'm a Fowler landscape architect. I don't know if you're familiar with Mesa Lane, but that's where the steps down to the beach are. So that's quite a thoroughfare through there. On weekends in particular, people parking there. So there's a lot of existing vegetation on this property. There's a lot of vegetation, nice trees and so forth that and a mix of things the owner's very fond of, and they have some garden aspects that they've kind of worked through the years that they're very fond of. So my charge, I guess, was to try to take some of those pieces and then weave those into this overall kind of new site plan. And I've tried to give some organization to some of the aspects of the yard, and I've tried to create some different use areas. So there's the existing single family part of it, and then there's the ADU part of it. So, you know, we're trying to keep some mild separation. I think the intent of the ADU is more for family, but so that there's some notion to try to separate that, but kind of jumping around. But if you look on Mesa Lane, one of the things that I did was have the suggestion to create a new front gate and entry off of Mesa Lane. So try to create kind of a courtyard flavor that comes off of Mesa Lane. Now that whole length is fairly heavily vegetated. And so we're keeping a good part of that because the owner's trying to find that balance of, you know, creating kind of a welcoming sense along that street and kind of a front door sense along that street at the same time, creating still maintaining the privacy factor that's there. So, you know, most of where I'm at with this job is, you know, kind of mapping out the existing vegetation and dealing with all the site circulation and the hardscape, and then kind of keying in on the major trees. The understory isn't yet developed at this point, and that will come along. But we did want to kind of get a sense of what the board feels on everything. So basically back on Mesa Lane, you see we created kind of a new courtyard and some of these things, there's some existing brick paving. We have the wood decking that we're now creating, and the brick paving are kind of the main themes. And then the pathway system is meant to be more gravel and more relaxed. So when you go around and then you go around to the back, you see that kind of main wood deck back there. And part of what we did there is we kept that up because just by being up 18 inches, we're able to kind of have that little corridor of an ocean view at the ground level. So you can kind of see how we've kind of have a little lounge area out the back. The owners wanted a spa, so that's going to incorporate into it. Some of their existing kind of existing landscaping, and they have some kind of swaths of gravel and things that I've maintained are part of it. And then on the west property is really there. It's pretty heavily vegetated with kind of mix of some, they got redwoods, sycamores, some oak trees, and so all that's kind of certainly coming into the Talbot yard, and we're keeping all that vegetation, and then I'm just supplementing it in a few little spots, adding some fruit trees, and that's basically most of it now. Anything to add to that, Bill? Anything I missed?
The last bit of information is we have had Joey Tosca look at the civil and our grading and drainage already too, and we were able to do a tier 1 on this based on the post and pre, and also the diligence in Rob's design to allow for permeable paving. So we've gone quite a ways through with development, as well as met with the different agencies through the DART program. So we're fairly a long ways away with the development of this, but we'd sure love to get your support on it as well. So thank you. That concludes it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Burkhart, did we get any public comment?
Thank you, Chair Miller. If you are attending by webinar and would like to comment on this item, please raise your hand by clicking the hand icon on your GoToWebinar control panel. While we wait for the hands, Ms. Fennessy, did we receive any written correspondence for this item?
Thank you, Ms. Burkhart. We did not receive any written correspondence for this item.
Okay, thank you. And there are no hands raised, so I'll hand it back to you, Chair Miller, for questions.
All right, Vice Chair Kalas, do you have any questions, please?
Can you hear me, Chair Miller?
Yes, I can hear you. I can't see you, but I can hear you.
Okay, just for some reason, something started happening with my earphones and I was trying to,
Well, there you are. You just appeared.
okay. Okay, my apologies. I have to be honest with you. This is a little bit of a, trying to think of an appropriate way to say this. This is a very complete set of drawings, which I appreciate. But the manner in which they're presented make it a little bit difficult, especially on this particular residence, to understand what's going on. In most cases, I think that existing photographs are sufficient to compare to proposed elevations. But on this particular project, it is a little bit difficult for me to quickly ascertain exactly what's changing on this home. It's a complex home in terms of the way the existing volumes relate to one another, the way the roof line shed, and it appears like just because of the constraints of the parcel and the vegetation that it's difficult to get a really clear shot of each elevation with a photograph. So while I think you've made a valiant effort here at shading areas that are within setbacks and things of that nature, it would have been really nice to see side by side existing south elevation versus proposed south elevation in the presentation for this particular project. I guess what I'm trying to understand, my understanding is that if an existing, and maybe staff can help me out here, but my understanding is that if there's an existing space that's being converted to an ADU, that parking does not need to be replaced for that. Is that in fact correct?
That is correct. I'm not sure if this site is in the coastal zone. That is correct outside of the coastal zone. Maybe Mr. Dostalek can weigh in as well, but if I'm wrong. So yeah, outside of the coastal zone, that's correct. However, this site is located within the coastal zone.
Okay.
We are looking close to public transit too. So.
Okay. the reason I'm asking that is it seems like it's the owner's desire to retain those 2 parking spaces that you're effectively losing by the conversion, rather than it being a zoning driven requirement. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah, they would prefer to have a garage covered park.
A 2-car garage, yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. And right now, the area that is being converted to, I'm just trying to understand exactly what's happening here, so bear with me. The area that is being converted to the ADU is a 2-car garage that has a small 2nd-story element above it, which is currently a gym, but then that roof line sheds down to be less than a 2-story element at some point. Is that right? It sheds down to roughly a 1-story element at the front of the garage?
Yes, you're correct. It's currently it's a shed roof, and the back portion, or the west side, which is the high side, is where the existing gym is, and it has an exterior stair leading up to it. And I do apologize for not having a side-by-side. I realized that after it had been submitted that I should have included existing and new for you to see those differences.
Yeah, like I said, oftentimes photographs will do that also, but in this case, it's a relatively complex elevation, so it would have been helpful.
Yeah.
I think those are really the only questions that I have. The rest are sort of more comment oriented, Chair Miller. So I'll go ahead and pass the baton here.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Arakalian, do you have any questions, please?
Just one question. In regard, here, let me try to pull up. Sorry, just a moment here. I'm on page 12 of the PDF, A5.1. Oh, great. Yeah, the south elevation. Have any other configurations of the garage been explored in order to avoid you know, an encroachment of that size along the east property line?
We're very limited, and a site plan might show a little better about what's going on there, but we're very limited with how to configure that garage without encroaching into the setback. And part of it is we did not want to push, so this is our south exposure, obviously. If we pulled all the garage out of the setback and put it in front of the existing house, 2 things would happen. One is we would lose the south exposure, the living area. That's the main living area right there. And secondly, it would probably become too close to the property line at the front then to be able to back out and maneuver properly. So because of the angle on the site, this was the best spot. But we did consider many different options, tried to do what we could, and really our hands were tied to try and keep it out of that front setback. And partially we thought because the neighborhood had set a precedent already for that proximity on other houses in terms of the front setbacks, we thought it would be okay to ask for that modification.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's my question. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Board Member Klein, do you have any questions, please?
No questions.
All right, thank you. Board Member Motisha, do you have any questions, please?
You're muted, Joe.
Now I can speak. I have just an overall question. Have we seen this before from some different architect for a different concept review? Seems to me I've seen this in front of us quite a few years back.
No, I'm not aware of it.
This is a total new project, new concept review. Okay, that's fine.
I must have
we got a lot of projects right down there, end of Mesa Lane, right by the steps. And could we look at the site plan again and show me exactly where the existing driveway comes off of Mesa Lane? Show me where the steps are.
Okay.
The
So the
steps are
little
right.
hand is the beach access trail there. Do you see that down at the bottom there? So that's where
That's- The steps go from high right down to at the bottom down to lower left. Oh no, right there. Okay, okay,
Yeah.
that's where I thought the steps were.
yeah.
So that's a driveway.
Goes-
That is an existing driveway that goes in there to the back or to the south of your property.
Yes, that's an existing driveway that services the old Beach Boy property, which is to the left or the west, and
Correct.
another house that says One Mesa Lane. You did look at a project that was right there for an ADU on top. Well, maybe you didn't look at it. I don't know. It was an ADU on top of a garage across.
Yes.
That
Okay,
is
that's up with. And where is the driveway, the existing driveway right now?
So at the top right corner of the lot where it says new ADU entry up there.
Sorry, it's so small, I can't even, I know there's writing there, right there. Okay, that's the driveway right there that comes
Yeah.
off.
There's a curb cut. You can kind of see it, east driveway, apron and curb cut to be removed.
Gotcha. Okay, that's where the cursor is. Now I see where it is. I can't read any of that
Yeah,
with a Microsoft, with a, yeah.
magnifier.
Okay, that's all the questions I have. Yeah, it's very similar to a lot of those, all those houses in that corner of that Mesa Lane and the steps. They're all very vegetated, covered and hidden.
Yep.
I believe the trees and the fences there. Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I have no questions. At this time, oh, I do. Yeah, can we go back to the exterior elevations, please? Okay, in particular, let's see, the south elevation? Or is the one that,
Hey, there you go. Yeah.
and not, okay, all of that's existing except for that little part of the garage there, is that correct?
No, and that's where Leslie's right. You know, what we're doing is we're extending that portion over. Well, both garages are new, and the portion over the garage is new.
Okay.
Okay. The rest of it is really just a matter of we're pulling some elements out toward us and to the west. So, and the roof did change angle on the living space. So it would be helpful if you saw the elevations, the photographs. There are photos in the set. I don't know if you want to go to those. We could certainly look at them. And
Well, I
that
was
was
just-
pretty good
well, yeah.
indication.
Well, I can follow up with what Board Member Colossus, yeah, like the north, what's this below elevation here, the west elevation, and the, yeah, like what's new and what's existing there?
Yeah, that's very similar to what's there now, really. We are coming toward us on the masters, so that portion in the center there does come toward us, and the portion to the right is all new. So there are photos that will show that difference
Okay.
in the
Well, I think
package.
Yeah, that pretty much kind of addresses the questions I have. I think that's all I have. I'm sorry, Board Member Ziegler, did you want to have questions? I seem to have skipped you over. Did you?
My question was, where was the parking and where is the parking? Because it looked like we had pictures of two red cars on the different part of the house, and it looks like the garage is going now. So I'm a little confused by that.
So parking was on the top there where it says new ADU entry. That's where the garage was.
Okay.
And now it's gone from there. No more parking, no more curb cut, no more pull-out driveway.
Yeah.
Getting moved to the bottom,
Okay.
coming up existing private drive. So there'll be a two-car garage right in there.
Okay. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Well, thank you, Board Member Ziegler. Going back to the board for comments, Board Member Vice Chair Kalas, do you have any comments, please?
Well, I feel a little bit, I'm having difficulty making comments just because I'd really like to be able to see some more side-by-side comparisons here. So I'll just speak in generalities. I think that the architect and applicant has made a valiant effort to try to match the existing architecture, which is appreciated. I think I could support the, I guess it would be the modification or the zoning determination that would allow the segmented open yard space. I'm a little bit on the fence in regards to the modification for the garage in the front yard setback. And the rationale there is when I look at sheet A 1.1, and perhaps it's just the way it's illustrated, Mr. Wolf, but when I look at this sheet and I look at the footprint of this home relative to open space on the parcel and property lines, it feels massive relative to the parcel compared to most of the surrounding residences, at least the way it's illustrated on this sheet. So I guess I would say I need more convincing to be able to support that modification, if at all. And I would like to be able to understand better what the true changes are that are in front of us from an elevation standpoint when you return to the board. And I would note that, just for record purposes, that, you know, the existing, as you referred to it, Beach Boys, Mike Love property, all of those are, you know, cottage, one-story type structures. And while this one is consistent with the ones that are to the north and west of it, the area where we're proposed, you know, we're seeing proposed two-story volumes really are right up against kind of that Beach Boy enclave, which is really more one-story in nature. And then I didn't ask the question, but I guess I would just want to be assured that the owner or applicant has communicated with those that they share this private road with in regards to the fact that they would be relocating the access to their parcel, because it would, my understanding is they have an easement and they're allowed to access their parcel through this private road, but it will increase traffic for their neighbors that they share it with. And it would be nice to know that those people have been in the loop in terms of communications. Those are my only comments.
All right, thank you. Board Member Arakalian, do you have any comments, please?
Chair Miller, if I could interrupt more time.
Yes, yes, Ms. Burkhardt.
I just wanted to remind the board, when you're making comments about the modification, if you could speak more specifically about the aesthetic appropriateness. It's just helpful for the staff hearing officer to understand where you're coming from and in terms of aesthetics. And we can pull that slide up when we're ready to make a motion, but just, it also helps in your comments as well. Thank you.
Okay, Board Member Arakalian, do you have any comments, please?
I do. I think, yes, similar, echoing Vice Chair Kalas's comments about the private road. You know, if the neighbors are okay with that, I totally understand from your presentation about, you know, backing out of Mesa Lane. It's challenging, so I'm in support of that. But what I'm having a challenging time supporting is the garage, that proposed garage and the encroachment. I drove by the property. I'm very familiar with that part of the Mesa. it's a very visible, very, high traffic area. And, having that building come out, come out, it just makes it much more, much visible. It's at the end of the street. I just have I appreciate the applicant's creativity and effort in trying to come up with different solutions, but I'm just having a hard time supporting that just because it's, when I'm looking at the site plan, it's, here, let me see which page. I'm on page A1. I feel like it's just bulging out. I'm seeing Mesa Lane and to Edgewater, and I feel like it's quite close. If there's some way to, I would like to ask the other board members if they have any design suggestions on where that can go while keeping it aesthetically pleasing. But yeah, I'm having a hard time with, I like like I said, I like the idea of the driveway, but I'm having a hard time with that encroachment. I have a hard time supporting that. And similar to the other board members, I would like to comment more on the aesthetics, but I would like to see the side-by-side existing and proposed elevations to better understand the changes, like existing south on the left, proposed south on the right of the page, or something like that. But other than that, I do like the landscape plans to a degree, and thank you for a nice presentation. Those are my comments.
All right, thank you. Board Member Klein, do you have any comments, please?
Yes, I agree. It would be helpful to see the, existing versus the proposed. The design works well with the neighborhood. It matches what's existing as far as the architectural materials aesthetically. I think it's appropriate. The landscape, there's a lot of plant material that's being kept on site and new material that's being planted, which provides a significant buffer with the neighbors, and I think works well aesthetically for the site. And then also, as far as that modification, there is a new fence that's being built there. So I think that helps with that side. So I'm in support as of now with that. It just doesn't seem too significant of a bump out for me aesthetically.
All right, thank you. Board Member Motisha, do you have any comments, please?
Yeah, don't really support the area of, it was just a garage at just a couple feet, but what you've done is extended the whole building into that setback. You have the garage, one major portion of one garage, and then you have this area that's just north of the second garage. That's also, half of that is in the setback. So you're basically encroaching a lot of the addition into the setback, which is not something that this board, at least I can support, because it aesthetically, it kind of, because of the two-story and the massive of the house on the lot, as Board Member Claus has stated, I think it's just too close to the road to let this invasion into the setback be allowed. I don't support that invasion. I think we're allowing it because, yes, it is good plan to move that parking over onto the private roadway that's to the south and take it off of Mesa Lane, but that's not a reason why we allow buildings to encroach in the setback. Even though the front yards or the garages may encroach into the view of the house, that's a design design criteria rather than a zoning, I won't say zoning, 'cause that's not our board's concern, but I think the house is too big to allow that encroachment into the front yard setback. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Board Member Ziegler, any comments, please?
I agree with Mr. Motisha, and so I'd like to see something done about that encroachment on the lane. And then I guess the other thing that I should have asked in questions is what's the FAR for this property now? Was that disclosed up front?
Yeah, there we go. It's 85%.
Okay. That's okay. Thank you.
But that
85%. That massive house on that lot with that addition is.
Yeah, does that include the ADU, or does that take the square footage away from?
Takes the 600 square foot ADU out. It's not included in the FAR. Did you hear that?
Yes.
Yes.
And I think the site plan is maybe not a good representation because it shows all the decks and the paving and that I think for your purposes, Leslie, is why it looks as massive on the site aerial, because it includes all that line work for the site work, hardscapes, paving, walkways.
Yeah, I was wondering if it was just partly the way it was presented, because the other ones are just simple footprints of homes with the white poche or the white fill, and so it reads differently, and I don't know if that would change our perception or not.
Okay, can we stop the discussion a moment? Let me keep it to the board right now. Thank you, Mr. Wolf. Appreciate it.
Chair Miller?
Yes, who's that?
I-
Board Member Cal- yes. Do you have something to say?
Right. I do. I'm curious to hear from the board if they have any design suggestions on how to minimize the encroachment while conforming to our guidelines. Maybe a different location for the garage, or.
Mr. Arkelian, hold on. I appreciate this comment, but you've already had your chance to comment, and I need to move this forward. And I think as far as that question is concerned, I don't think it's the purview of the board to design for the client or the architect. We can either support it or not support it, but to design it for them, I don't think is appropriate. So I think we need to be careful about that. Ms. Burkhart, do you have anything you need to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to remind you again, the support of the modification is a land use decision, so that's not within your purview. So we are looking, I know it's a little bit of a struggle. We're so used to saying support or don't support, but what we're really looking for are comments on this, if whether or not the modification would pose aesthetic issues such as inconsistency with the neighborhood development patterns or exacerbation of conflicts with single family residence design guidelines. So if you frame your comments or your motion in those terms, it would be really helpful for the staff hearing officer.
So may I ask a point of clarification there, Chair Miller,
Please.
real quickly?
Yes.
So if we're speaking to, I'm just going to ask the question. If we were to make a comment that was not in favor of the encroachment as a result of that providing an opportunity which promotes too much mass on the parcel, would that be an acceptable comment to forward to show?
Yeah, I believe so. If it's, you're saying you're relating it to the design of the architecture, the aesthetic appearance of, what the resulting project would be. But
So if we're speaking to size, bulk, and scale or massing, it's appropriate.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. I think, Mr. Ziegler, did you make any comments or?
I did, yes.
Okay, so my comments are, Mr. Wolf, you did a brilliant job, your creativity. Can we go back to the exterior elevations, please? So you were struggling with the style of the architecture. I call this ecology architecture. It was very popular in the 70s. And it came about, I think, birthed from the ecology movement. So a lot of people were building their homes in redwood and had big exposed beams, and you had these big swoopy roofs. But I can't support the size, bulk, and scale of the home. I want to reiterate what Board Member Vice Chair Collas said about comparing it to the other homes, especially when you look at the east elevation. That looks just too much. I think there should be more study of more of a simpler compaction of the style of the home. I don't know how you can do that. But yeah, it just seems to be too big for the property. So at this point in time, aesthetically, as far as size, bulk, and scale, in that context, I think that needs to be studied and reduced. Therefore, application for a modification at this time, I'm not prepared to say that I could say that it's appropriate. I guess that's the way to say it. Anyway, so with that being said, I guess they're here for comments. Would someone like to entertain a motion?
Could I ask a question before we entertain a motion here, Chair Miller?
Sure.
The question is really one for both staff and the applicant, I think. Given where we're at right now and the tone of what we're hearing from the board, I'm wondering if the applicant would have a desire to return to the board with a perhaps expanded presentation or a revised project for us to look at before we provide comments for the show hearing.
Mr. Wolf, do you have something you'd like to say?
Yes, I would. Yes, I think let's approach that way. I would like to have a chance to chat with the client as well and find out what their feelings are on it. But at this point, I'd like to do that, to come back with some more documentation. I do have three-dimensional models and a lot of other things I think that'll help you see really what we're trying to achieve here. So if I could do that, that would be great.
Okay.
I agree, that would be helpful.
Okay, so I'm prepared to make a motion then based on that input from the client.
Awesome.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion that this project be indefinitely continued back to the full board prior to moving forward to the staff modification hearing officer with the following requests: that the client study the location and massing of the proposed portion of garage that encroaches into the front yard setback along Mesa Road or Mesa Lane, that the applicant also provide us with additional information regarding the FAR for adjacent parcels. And that's it. I'd like to just keep this simple since they'll be returning to us. Oh, and we would specifically like to see side-by-side exterior elevations of both the existing as well as proposed project.
All right, thank you. Do I have a second for that, please?
I second it.
All right, thank you. May I have a roll call, please?
Thank you. I'll now start the roll call vote. Vice Chair Collas.
Yes.
Board Member Ara Kellyan.
Yes.
Board Member Klein.
Yes.
Board Member Motisha.
Yes.
Board Member Ziegler.
Yes.
And Chair Miller.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf. We'll see you again. I just wanted to add that the noise that Bill Wolf is hearing is, I used to work for Sorrell Design for almost 19 years, and our office is right next door to his office. So I know there's people moved in the remodeling. So that's the side story for anyone who cares. All right, moving on to item 3, 934 East Haley Street. New item, concept review. Proposal for a new 750 square foot garage with an 890 square foot accessory dwelling unit above. Property is developed with a 1,084 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1-story single family residence and 185 square foot detached single car garage on a 6,250 square foot lot. The single car garage will be removed. 2 trees are proposed for removal in the front yard setback, and the guy wire supporting the power pole on the east side is proposed to be relocated. Modifications to the front setback, maximum accessory building floor area, and open yard standards are required. The proposed total of 2,724 square feet of development on a 6,250 square foot lot is 99% of the maximum guideline floor to lot area ratio. No final appealable action will take place at this hearing. Neighborhood preservation findings will be required to be made for project design approval. Mr. Dostalek, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yes, please, Chair Miller. I would like to read a few comments into the record just to give the board a sense as to where staff has landed with some of these modification requests.
Okay.
And to steer you to look at a couple of things in particular too. And again, we're looking for aesthetic appropriateness in terms of the comments. And as noted, there is an open yard modification requested, and that's to provide the required open yard in 2 areas for a total of 1,064 square feet. And staff is supportive of this proposal. The subject parcel is a corner lot that is constrained because of the 2 front setbacks. And that's along East Haley Street and North Aliso Street. And additionally, the project would provide off-street parking for both the main residence and the proposed ADU, and would also remove a dilapidated, non-functioning garage to create a secondary open yard area. And I see Mr. Bennell has popped on, and he'll probably reiterate some of these items as well. And then there's also an accessory floor area modification that's proposed. And the proposed floor area exceeds the 1,300 square feet of maximum accessory building floor area that would be allowed on this lot. And the accessory floor area modification is supportable. The project site currently has no functioning off-street parking. The project would provide off-street parking for both units, and the ADU would be slightly larger to accommodate the proposed tenant. And I also wanted to point out too that the parcel is zoned R2 and could be developed with another just regular residence. And also just wanted to point out that the FAR guideline, or the FAR is a guideline for this project. And for the front setback modification, staff is tentative and in general support of the front setback modification, but this is where we'd be looking for some input from the board members themselves as to the aesthetic appropriateness. And just a couple other things. There is one element on the ADU that does not comply with the objective design guidelines under the current ordinance, and that's the proposed deck that is proposed to be less than 15 feet from the adjacent interior lot line. And you'll see that as Mr. Bernal walks you through the project. And then lastly, we do have an aerial image of that intersection available should you want to get a sense of what the neighborhood looks like around it, or that adjacent property in which the second story deck would be adjacent to. And those are the only remarks that I wanted to kick off with, and I'll be on the sideline again in case any questions come up. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Mr. Brunel, if you'd like to present your project, that'd be great. And you have a 15-minute period to do that.
Okay, great, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Good, I'm trying to recover from my anxiety of not being able to make the technical aspects of this work. I guess it would make sense to go down to the, I think it's the 4th page in the set where the site plan is. Okay. Oh, good. Right. So the current configuration of the lot is there's an existing residence as shown, which takes access through stairs off Haley Street. And there's also a single car garage. You can see what's called adjacent footprint down there at the bottom. We have an equal garage right next to it. When we get to the pictures, you'll see those are two kind of really old, dilapidated garage. Ours is in worse condition, that are right on the sidewalk. And then the lot is fairly deep. And when you go down Aliso Street, it's a significant drop. You can kind of see the contours at the top of the page there as you go down. So, and there's nothing back there now, just some, some paving and maybe a shed that's probably not even permitted. So the proposal, the idea is that the owner wants to add a second unit, an additional dwelling unit, or an accessory dwelling unit, excuse me, and would like to provide parking for both the house and the unit, because the garage that's there now really doesn't provide anything. It's too small. It has water intrusion. It's not very useful. So the idea was to excavate into the site and drop the garage, I think about 4 feet down into the grade, and then come off Aliso Street. So you'd have a different access point for the 2 units, and then go ahead and put the accessory dwelling unit up above the garage. Her needs are specific in this, in that she is looking to create housing for her son who is disabled and needs to have a live-in caretaker with him. So it's crucial to her to get a big enough unit to be able to have 2 bedrooms. The unit above is 890 square feet. It's a 2-bedroom unit. It would take access from the stair that you can see. You would come up a set of stairs onto the property from Aliso Street, and then go up a set of stairs, basically up a half flight to the unit up above. I guess, why don't we go down another page and look at the unit itself. So you can see you come up the stairs, you come into a living dining area. All of these room spaces are fairly modest. I think the living room area is 14 by 22. The dining is 10 by 11. And the bedrooms are 11.6 square. And the bathrooms are really minimal GI type bathrooms. The area at the back of the garage that has the 2 walls, what's happening there is that the garage itself is not allowed to have a 4-foot setback. And so we didn't really want to ask for 2 additional modifications for the 2 interior yard setbacks for the garage. So it has a 6-foot setback on the right side there, and on the left side, or on the bottom, the garage is back 6 feet, but the ADU overhangs that additional 2 feet to try and get the footage we need and to minimize the encroachment into the front yard setback. You can see the dotted line there shows the overhang of the unit above. So the garage is back and meets the setback, but the unit above would encroach into it 3 feet down to a 17-foot setback. Because of the grade, if we can back up again and see the elevations, you can see the west elevation is the back of the garage. And so the ADU will just go down to grade there, and you won't perceive a cantilever or anything happening over on that side. The building will just look uniform. As far as the design itself, I actually think, ironically, it really helps the aesthetics of the building to be allowed to cantilever into that setback some. It's shown on the east elevation. You know, the program of this and the utility of it is basically, you know, a unit right above a garage, which tends to make a pretty unattractive box. And so by having the cantilever and adding some detail with the beams and things below and being able to set in the deck, it creates a lot of animation that a building like this often would not have. We're supposed to try and match the front house. So the roof will be the same. This drawing's notes say that the siding will be the same color, but if you look at the pictures, the main house is actually kind of a beige, which I find to be pretty unattractive. So I think that this sort of green direction will be really compatible and probably much nicer, and will work with the kind of the historic color palette where we chose the color for the doors. Let's see. You know, we're as careful as we could be with the elevation composition, trying to center the doors over the, the windows over the garage doors. You'll see if we back up to where we can see the other elevations, we've tried to do a symmetrical composition on the west elevation. We're centering a window on the south elevation, doing everything we can to make this building attractive. As far as the, I guess, could we go back to, I think it would be the G2, the third sheet of the photos, and zoom in on the photo on the, let's see here, top right, number 7. So I just want you to see that so you understand that our property is just to the right of that. That fence post there is our property line. And so in terms of proposing the deck that we are proposing, I think that, I don't even know what to call it. It's not really a zoning regulation, but it's a standard or something that if the board approves it, we can go down to a setback lower than 15 feet. So we're 4 feet away. If you add in the driveway, we're going to be 15 feet to any kind of yard or space where people will be. And because of the alignment on the site, we're not even next to the house. The deck is next to the front yard. So privacy concerns, which are normally what that's about with a deck, are really not an issue because of the way this happens to be configured and how far back on the site that house is. And we also have a wing wall that comes out 2 feet. If you could go back to the last sheet that shows the drawings of the units again, you'll see the south elevation, the wall of the garage and the unit above are in line. And in order to do that, we're bringing out a wing wall on the deck about 2 feet. So we are screening the deck a little bit from the neighbor already. My understanding of what the kind of the purpose of coming to the board is to get comments that will be used when we go to the staff hearing officer for the modifications that are being requested. We're requesting 3 modifications, one to the open yard to be below the 1250. Ours goes down to 1064. That is in 2 sections, one of which is more than 800 square feet, which I'll address in a minute. We're also asking to have our accessory footage be, I forget the number, Robert would know, I think 300 over what's allowed. And we're requesting to have the front setback be reduced from 20 feet down to 17 feet. So as far as the open yard, there's a lot of quirky conditions and things that are going on in the site that are really pertinent to what we're trying to do here. We could do a 500 square foot garage, which would allow the open yard to drop to 800 square feet required, which we're already providing. And then we could still do the unit the same size above it. But obviously that would be a really awkward design, and it would not provide as much parking. So it seems like it's kind of going in the wrong direction. And of course we have a corner lot, so that's always creates an enormous hardship when it comes to these open yard areas. The fact of the matter is they have a lot of space in the front that's not allowed to be counted. And because there's a 2 foot or 2.5 foot retaining wall there, the yard is above the sidewalk, which makes it even more comfortable to be out there using because you're not right there. As far as the accessory footage goes, you know, we're caught in a quirk of these rules that it requires us to count the accessory dwelling unit as accessory footage. If we did a second residential unit, it could be bigger and we wouldn't have to count it. Also, we could build the 3-car garage and be under and not have to get the modification and then come back in and build the unit afterwards on top. The state law would not allow it to be stopped because of the accessory footage. So we could, you know, phase it and get through it. But again, it seems unproductive to do that. You know, in general, the benefits of this are to, you know, provide more much needed housing at the kind of the lower end of the spectrum. provide parking that's desperately needed. My understanding is they're going to put a bike lane down Aliso, so we'll lose parking on one side of the street along that area. And it also would be a benefit to remove the existing garage and get back to meeting the development standards of not having a garage on the street, providing the parking that's required for the house, et cetera. As far as the front setback modification, the house is already at 10'4" from the Aliso side setback. The neighbor across the street was granted a modification to 18 feet, and they were also granted modifications for accessory footage and open yard area. So there's really precedent for that right across the street. And so as we move back from 10'4" to 17, I think, you know, in terms of the compatibility and the development patterns in the neighborhood, we would really be complying with those. You know, the encroachment's only 3 feet. It's a cantilever over the driveway, so you're not really giving up usable yard or anything like that. And so it seems like it makes a lot of sense to me. One thing that, again, I think it's important to realize is that the owner needs to get this unit. And if she's not able to make it work this way, her next step is going to be to drop the garage. And because of the configuration of the site and how high the site is above Aliso Street, the unit would be able to be built there in basically the same place. It would be a little bit lower, maybe 2 feet, but the massing would be very similar. But it would then be less than 15 feet above grade, so there would be the front setback would go to 15, not 20, and undoubtedly the building would move all the way up to that setback.
Mr. Brunel, did you use up your allotted 15 minutes? I'm sorry.
No, it looks like I have 3 minutes and 10 seconds left.
Excellent. I'm sorry. I used to have a timer. It disappeared on me. Go on.
Yeah, I have one, and it's making me talk faster and faster.
Oh, there it is. Sorry. Go on.
Yeah, I'm almost there. So anyway, you know, obviously this is not a threat. It's just the reality of where her next step is going to be to have to go to something that will not be any better. You know, it'll be closer to the street. The unit will be the same size, or maybe we'll go up to the 1,200 that I think is allowed, and there will be no parking left, and the bad garage in the front will stay. So it would all be a disaster, and that's really unique to this site. Under normal circumstances, that would not be true. You would be able to get down to a real one-story building, but that isn't what would happen here. So I think that's pretty much everything. I think we're done. Wraps it up.
Thank you, Mr. Brunel. I forgot that little microscope, I enlarged the picture and it covered up that clock. So anyway.
No problem.
So thank you very much. Board member, Ms. Burkhart, did we get any public comment?
Thank you, Chair Miller. If you are attending by webinar and would like to comment on this item, please raise your hand by clicking the hand icon on your GoToWebinar control panel. And while we wait for hands, Ms. Fennessy, did we receive any written correspondence for this item?
Thank you. We received one public comment letter from Christina Stowell, and that was distributed to the board prior to this meeting.
Okay, thank you. We do have one hand raised. Christina Stoll, I would like to call on you. I'm going to unmute you. Let's see, I'm going to send you an unmute request. Okay, your mic is live. You have 2 minutes to speak whenever you're ready.
Hi there, I'm Christina Stoll. I'm the resident and owner of 930 East Haley, which is right next door. And the reason why I'm commenting is because me and the property owner have had a lot of conversation about our garages. So our garages actually have a shared wall, and my garage is not dilapidated. I use it every single day. And my concern is they're going to remove their garage, and we haven't came to an agreement about how we're going to address the structure of maintaining my garage and the aesthetics. I'm looking for it to be stucco and look consistent with the rest of my house. And then also, you know, I understand it's an R2 lot, but you know, it is being built up right next to my property. So I will lose my mountain views from my backyard and my 2 bedrooms. So my main concern is my garage. And second is the views. And that's all I had to comment.
Okay, there are no further hands raised, so I'll hand it back to you, Chair Miller, for questions.
All right, thank you. Vice Chair Kalas, do you have any questions, please?
I have a couple of questions, or at least one. Mr. Burnell, when you were talking about the colors on the exterior and the hardy board siding here that you're proposing being this sort of more sage green, I'll call it, is there any intention to paint the existing residence to match that once you've diverged from the color of the existing residence?
No, at this point, it was really just trying to do something that's complementary to it. I don't know that that might not happen at some point in the future, but that's not part of the plan now. I'd love to talk her into painting the front door the red to at least get that kind of consistency going, because everything on the other house is just white, but that's not part of the plan yet.
Okay. And then I'm guessing that board member Klein would probably ask this question, but I'll ask it anyhow. Are there any proposed landscape part of that?
Not yet.
Is that a yes, but they're just not here for us to look at, or is that a no?
We haven't really thought about it yet. I mean, there's a significant paved area in the back of the main house now, and the tenants put that in. And so if that's something they want to maintain, we need to work out. There will be very little landscaping, but we would certainly landscape along the south and west sides. And there's been a discussion with the owner and the neighbor about putting in a fence in between the two. So, but I think we would come back with the landscaping at a later date when we know whether or not we're going to be able to get modifications and things. I mean, the whole project will change dramatically if we can't get those.
Okay, so follow-up question then to your comment. When you're talking about putting a fence in between the two neighbors, can you articulate which neighbor that is that those discussions have taken place with? Is that the neighbor on Alisos or the neighbor on Haley?
The neighbor on Haley who spoke earlier.
Okay. Those are the only questions I have. Everything else are comments, so I'll hold this. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Board Member Arkelian, do you have any questions, please?
No questions. Thank you.
Board Member Klein, do you have any questions, please?
My question was asked, so no further questions.
Okay. Board Member Otisha, do you have any questions, please?
Yes, the combined wall between the two small garages, is that, could we blow that area up, the two garages? So there's only what, about, I'm not seeing the project's small garage. Is that the outlined? No, that's the outlined area. Okay. All right. Okay. Good. I hate drawings that have numbers and then you've got to look for numbers to find out what they mean.
Could you enlarge so he includes the dashed removed garage, please? Enlarge this well up. No, I'm sorry. Shrink it down so you include the two garages. Sorry.
Chair Miller, both are visible on screen. I don't know if you're...
There they are. Okay.
There we go. Sorry. What is the dashed, what is 22?
That's the secondary open yard area we're providing, which removing the garage actually allows you to get a little bit more usable.
I'm usually looking at drawings that have something written right on them. Okay, no, I think, I'll save my comments. That's all the questions I have.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Ziegler, do you have any questions, please?
Hello? Am I unmuted?
There you are. Now
Okay.
you're on.
Yeah, I'm saying I didn't have any questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. My only question is, going back to what the neighbor was commenting, Mr. Brunel, I guess you were going to remove that garage, you're saying, and it's sharing a common wall with the adjacent garage, is that correct?
That is correct, yes. I think actually the common wall is on our property, but we're planning to maintain that. You can see the heavy line in there with the number 20. That's a retaining wall because, like I said, the property is a couple feet above the sidewalk. So we'll need to retain. And of course, our intention is to not compromise the integrity of her garage at all and to make sure it's in, the same shape it was in.
The thing I want to add to you is because we're looking at stupid computer screens. We're trying to, you have it in your mind what it all looks like, and we're just seeing these little pictures with arrows and numbers. I'm trying to figure out exactly what I'm seeing here. So when you do remove your garage, do you damage her garage in some way?
No, we're hoping not to do that. I mean, if we can go to the pictures, there's pictures from Haley Street that might be helpful to look at. Next sheet up. There we go.
Oh, there, top right.
Top right.
Oh, I see.
So you can see the retaining wall along the front there. So that wall will continue along and then turn and go along the edge of her garage. And I think we might pull our retaining wall back a little more than what's shown on that site plan so that we can build a whole new wall and go up and tie into the roof on our property, really not touch her building at all. And just be able to leave a foot and tie in the roof or whatever we have to do. But it's a little tricky, but it shouldn't be that big a deal.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I think that answers my question.
Okay.
Yeah, it's funny. These little garages were added. I think these homes were probably built before cars. And when cars were added, people added these little garages to park their cars. Okay, I'm bringing it back to the board for comments. Vice Chair Kalas, do you have any comments, please?
I do. I really appreciate that the applicant is trying to do the right thing here by being upfront and forthright with the planning department as well as ourselves in terms of what's happening on the parcel. It would be probably much easier in certain ways and much more difficult in other ways to stage this and not have to pursue maybe as many modifications. But I personally really appreciate the fact that you're just being forthright with us and saying, look, here's what we want to do, and we think it's the right thing for the lot. So kudos to you for doing that, Mr. Burnell. I generally like the project. I question the need for, I guess it's the modification related to the deck. The reason I question that is when I look at the floor plan layout of the ADU, it really feels to me like it could almost just be reversed. And the entrance to that unit could be from the west side. I'm calling it the west side. I know that would change the nature of where the spaces are relative to solar orientation, but other than that, it doesn't seem like it would have any significant impact on the unit itself, and it would completely resolve any privacy issues that would relate to future development on the parcel to the east along Aliso Street. So that's probably my biggest critique in terms of what I'm seeing. I personally could support several of the modifications that are being requested. From a hardship standpoint and an aesthetic standpoint, I think there's substantive open yard on the Haley side of the existing residence. And although that can't officially be calculated or used in an open yard calc, I think it is appropriate to consider that in this case because of the fact that the yard is up higher. I would not be able to support the deck for the reasons I've already stated. If the color of the accessory and garage is to diverge from the main residence, I would want to see the main residence painted to match or vice versa, the siding to match. I think that the location of the garage and the ADU from a neighborhood compatibility and fabric standpoint is okay, even though it does encroach on front yard setbacks. And one of my rationales in stating that is because this new proposed structure on the lot sits back from the face of the main residence along Aliso Street. So it's not sitting proud of the main residence, it's deferent to it, which I think is appropriate. And I support the off-street parking that's being proposed because I think I own a residence in this general area and parking is a significant issue on the east side. And I think anytime you can get parking on a parcel here, it's a bonus for the neighborhood. I think those are all of my comments.
All right, thank you. Board Member Klein, do you have any comments, please?
Yes. I think that the mass bulk and scale is appropriate for the neighborhood and the grades shown. So I think the modification is aesthetically appropriate. The project would make the site more usable and, as mentioned, provide more parking for the neighborhood, which helps aesthetically, I think, for the neighborhood, helping with the parking. I would like to see new planting, especially along the property lines, and new trees where possible, if that is possible for the site, to help with the elevation. Those are my comments.
All right, thank you. Board Member Arakalian, do you have any comments, please?
I do, thanks. I support the applicant's requested modifications to the open yard and the front yard setback, and I believe it's aesthetically appropriate. I'm also in support of the proposed color palette, and I do agree with Vice Chair Kalas around the parking issue. I think this applicant is being considerate of the neighborhood and providing much needed parking and also providing housing as well. So I'm in support of the project for now. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Board Member Motisha, do you have any comments, please?
Yes, I'm in support of the project. I think it's more than very nicely designed and sits on a lot that's more than adequate for it. It also pulls some parking and makes the elevations on Haley Street look a lot better with just one single garage there owned by the neighbor, and the dilapidated garages that will probably remain if it wasn't removed. Yeah, I like the project with the ADU above it and the added parking, garages and off-street parking. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Board Member Ziegler, do you have any comments, please?
My comment is it looks like a very desirable project, but I would agree that if they can paint the main house the color scheme of this one, I think it would be highly appropriate. That's it for me.
All right, thank you. I do have one more question for the Mr.
Bernie?
Burnell.
Burnell, Mr. Burnell. The plate height for the second story, is that 8 feet? Where'd he go? I'm assuming it is.
Okay.
I hope it is.
There
There
we
you
go.
are.
Sorry, I'm being manhandled by whoever controls the.
Well,
Yes, I think the plate on the, well, that's a good question. Hold on a sec.
yeah, I'd like to know that.
It's been so long since I submitted this thing. No, it's drawn at 8'6".
I think
Okay.
may I make a comment?
Who's that? Motisha? Mr. Yes, please.
I think to keep this addition, which is going to look very much like the existing house, that we should keep the plate heights and the roof pitches and the color looking the same, because it's going to fit in with the existing and the new neighborhood. If we raise it, anything that puts any farther above the top of the windows, it's going to look kind of odd, kind of out of place aesthetically, instead of fitting in with the existing house.
Point taken.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I kind of want to follow up with that. I believe I'd be more comfortable with 8-foot plate heights just to match the existing neighborhood. And I'd also strongly consider what Vice Chair Colossus was talking about, maybe moving the balcony, and then you wouldn't have any privacy issues.
My camera was getting cut off and things were happening, and I think the directions that she was saying were not correct, and so I'm confused. Were you saying move it to the south side?
Mr. Board Member, Vice Chair Colossus, can you reiterate what you were talking about in terms of the balcony?
I think I transposed east and west when I was making my comment, Mr. Burnell, now that you mention it. So
yeah, something happened.
The idea would be that I think of east as right on the page as we're looking at this document right now. So if the ADU were to be flip-flopped or reversed in an east-west direction so that the kitchen were on the west side and that was where your entry point was rather than the deck, so that the deck would be on the west side, it would remove the privacy issue in perpetuity, really, for both parcels.
All right, well, I think with the setback, I don't think we can put the stair on that side, but we can look at it.
Well, I think
the idea is that the stair would remain in its current location, and you would enter that way.
I think it should remain.
Oh, enter through the deck? Okay, I get it.
I think privacy is a question here, basically because the house next door is way back, almost 10 to 15 feet to the back of the east side of this house. And there is a fin wall that sticks out there. And if we reverse the whole thing, then you're coming into the kitchen. You leave the stairway on the same west side, but you're coming into a kitchen. And you can put the kitchen, I like this design. I think this design fits our criteria a lot better than it is. Thank you.
Okay.
I am leave it at that.
All right, so we got some differing approaches to this. So with that being said, who would like to, let's see, they're here for comments only, I believe, and the city is requesting our comments regarding supporting, well, not supporting, but the aesthetic appropriateness of the requested modifications.
And Chair Miller, if I may, real quick.
Please.
Yes, I just wanted to clarify that, and I think most of you are on it, but I just wanted to clarify that the proposed deck, there is not a modification requested for the proposed deck. That's simply because the deck doesn't meet that 15-foot setback requirement under the ADU regulations. It becomes a guideline. And so hopefully we can have the board members comment on their support of that element of the project.
Very good. Thank you very much for that clarification. So with that, would someone like to entertain a motion? Come on, someone, be brave. Expand your horizons.
And if I may, one more time through the chair, just to reemphasize to frame the motion in a way that speaks to aesthetic appropriateness versus support or non-support of the modification elements.
All right,
That's
thank
all.
you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll be brave, Brian, again.
Leslie, now, darn it, I want to go for
I
it.
know,
Okay.
I'm waiting for somebody to chime in here, but we also need to keep things moving, so.
Yeah, we got to go home. Okay, go for it.
Okay, so, okay, so I'll take a stab at it, and then obviously we may need to make revisions. The board is supportive of the project. We think that it is in keeping with the general fabric of the neighborhood in terms of size, bulk, and scale. We support the increased square footage for accessory use because we believe that the parking would be beneficial aesthetically to the neighborhood in that it would reduce the amount of on-street parking and associated, I want to say riffraff, and I can't, you know, yeah, thank you. The associated congestion, which is aesthetically unappealing. We can't, given the corner lot configuration of this property and the fact that the front yard sits above the adjacent sidewalk, we can support the open yard modification because we feel that the front yard along Haley Street will be used to a greater degree than some front yards might be used typically. The board is split on its support of the location of the deck for the ADU. Some board members would like to see the floor plan of the ADU flipped in an east-west direction so that there would not be any privacy issues in perpetuity related to the adjacent property on Aliso Street. Other board members feel as though there is no privacy concern because of the relationship between the existing residents next door and the proposed unit. We would like to thank the applicant for being forthright in illustrating what the final proposed configuration is for the project on the property. And we commend their unique solution to the setback issues on the related to the south property line. We would like to see the color scheme of the project matching that of the principal residence on the property.
No, vice versa. The principal residence would match this.
I'm attempting to give them the option, Mr. Ziegler, of either doing this yellow to match the existing house or vice versa. If you're not in agreement with that, I'm happy to change that comment. That's my motion. I hope I've addressed all of the modifications requested.
I
Thank
would
you,
think
Mayor.
one, I would think one.
Hold on.
Okay.
Mr. Ziegler, hold on. Do I have a second?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Ziegler, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I just thought mentioning bringing the garage down might not damage the neighbor's garage or something to that effect.
May I make a comment?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
I could support moving the balcony to the other side if maybe the balcony and the front door could be combined, or maybe not combined, but instead of having the balcony on the front and the entrance to the back, maybe putting together and maybe separated by a fin wall or something that keeps the balcony off the east corner down Aliso Street and puts the balcony up to the other side with the stairway. And
Well, that's okay. Mr. Motisha, I'd like to point out that in Colossus' motion, she included both, that the board was split. So that gives the designer the option to study that.
correct. I'm just putting my two with him.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair Colossus, would you like to make any comment about the plate heights?
I was just going to say, I'd like to also add that the plate heights should conform to those of the existing residents, which we believe to be 8 feet.
All right, thank you. Does the seconder of the motion agree with the revisions?
Yes, I do.
All right, thank you. May I have a roll call, please? Or does someone, sorry, I have to say this. You guys want to review the motion, or are you comfortable to go ahead with a roll call?
I have one additional item I'd like to add to the motion, and then if we could hear it read back, that would be helpful.
Okay.
When the applicant returns, I would like the applicant to provide a very detailed and articulate detail through the existing wall that is common between the carriage house garages, that illustrates how the applicant intends to address the wall that will remain and how it will be treated both above and below grade.
Does the seconder agree with that revision?
That is the wall between the two small garages you're referring to?
Yes.
Okay, yes, I agree with. Second agrees with that.
All right, thank you. Could you read the motion, Jillian, please.
Thank you. So what I have is continue indefinitely with the board supportive of the project. The project is in keeping with the general fabric of the neighborhood, size, bulk, and scale. Increase square footage for accessory. The parking would be beneficial aesthetically and reduce on-street parking and associated congestion, which is aesthetically unappealing. Given that this is a corner lot and the front yard sits above the adjacent sidewalk, the board can support the open yard modification because the board feels that the front yard on Haley will be used to a greater degree. The board is split on support of the location of the deck of the ADU. Some board members would like to see the floor plan flipped east to west to prevent privacy issues on Aliso Street. Some board members believe that there is no privacy concern because of the relationship between the existing and proposed unit. The board would like to thank the applicant for being forthright in illustrating final proposed project. The board commends the unique solution to the setback issues related to the south property line. The applicant shall provide color scheme matching that of the principal residence on the property. The plate heights should conform to existing residents which is 8 feet, returned to provide a detailed through the existing wall that is common between the carriage garage houses, and adjust the wall that will remain and how it will be treated above and below the grade.
All right, thank
Okay.
you.
I have one change to that, please. So it relates to Mr. Ziegler's comment about the color schemes. I would like that comment to read that the color schemes of the proposed and the existing residence shall match. Now that can be and however it wants to be phrased, but that can either be accomplished by the main house being painted to match this, or vice versa, or this being painted to match the existing residence. So the direction is not that this shall match the existing residence, it's either or.
Does the seconder agree with that revision?
Yes.
Okay. Do we need to read through the motion again, or are you guys happy?
We're happy.
I'm happy.
Okay,
Chair Miller,
yes.
staff,
Burkhardt.
if you could clarify the front yard modification comments.
Say, what are you looking for?
I'll let Mr. Dostalek take it from here. Thank you.
Chair Miller, thank you. Yes, there was the reference as it related to the front yard mod of supporting the front yard mod, but if there could be a little more of the angle of phrasing it more from aesthetic appropriateness rather than direct support or non-support of that particular mod component.
So I attempted to address that in my commentary where I stated that we can support that because it's consistent with the fabric of the neighborhood, and also because the proposed ADU and garage sit behind the face of the wall of the principal residence in respect to Aliso Street.
So, I think I could say, therefore, we feel that the modification is aesthetically appropriate.
That would be helpful
Okay.
to punctuate.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Brunel, do you have a quick comment? I would like to make a roll.
I do. You know, your directions are crossed up in this motion. I don't know if that's going to matter, but it could be confusing later.
With regard to what, Mr. Brunel?
Well, we're not proposing to flip the unit in the east-west direction. It's north-south. The neighbor is on the south property line. I think those, and we talked about the front setback being on the south side, but it's the east side. I just want to make sure those are correct.
Yeah, what he's saying is correct. It's southwest, north-south.
So I would have to, so Mr. Brunel, I would have to say that when you present your drawings, that you present it to the board more clearly in terms of east, west, north, south orientation. So there's confusion involved here because of a lack of understanding based on our computer monitors. So what I would
just
say—
the way the elevations are labeled. We should be—
Mr. Brunel, let me just say to you, we give you the benefit of the doubt in terms of how you want to present the drawings, and you bring it back saying, this is what you said, however, this is how it'll be based because we, whatever. So you have some room here to wiggle. Okay.
I understand. I understand what
I
Mr.
would like to
Brunel is
stop the
saying, though.
conversation. Can we just have a roll call, please? Sorry.
I suggest that you put actual north and a reference north, and we will then have it resolved. Simple.
So I would like to clarify, Chair Miller.
Okay.
Mr. Brunel is right. The way he has labeled his drawings on sheet A-2 is different than the way I think of ordinal directions in this neighborhood. So yes, in regards to the flipping comment, it would be the south and north elevations as illustrated on sheet A2. We'd be flipping the floor plan in that direction, Mr. Burnell.
Yep,
Okay.
I understand.
Great. So let's all just let that sink in. I don't think we need to recite the motion again. Can I have a roll call, please?
Thank you. I will now start the roll call vote. Vice Chair Kaloss,
Yes? Yes.
Board Member Ira Kellian,
Yes.
Board Member Klein,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
Board Member Ziegler,
Yes.
and Chair Miller.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Brunel. Okay. It's now. All right. Let's go to our next project. We're in time. It's item number 4, 20 El Prado Place. This is a new item for project design review. Proposal for a 35 square foot addition to the first floor and a new 620 square foot second floor to an existing 1,610 square foot single unit residence. The proposed total of 2,648 square feet of development on the 9,418 square foot lot is 75% of the maximum guideline floor to lot area ratio. Project design approval is requested. Project does require neighborhood preservation findings. Hello, Mr. Esparza. If you'd like to present your project, that'd be great.
Yes, thank you. What we are proposing is a second floor bedroom addition to an existing one-story house. The addition would be mostly over the existing garage with a good portion going over the back bedroom and den. We're proposing a partial one-story addition of 35 square feet for the stairs to go up to the unit and to create a new entry or, to create the space to get to the stairs from the den. If we go to page, the two-story element above the garage is what is being proposed. If we go to the next page, I'll show. We'll see some renderings. So this first rendering on the upper left is from the street looking up at the front of the property. There's existing palm trees that were delineated as closely as possible to what's actually existing there. On the top right, you see there's a small balcony just for standing with a cable rail. The cable rail element is being used on the deck that you see, the existing deck that you see on the to the right of that, as well as if you look on the left lower one, the property has a fence that's that uses the cable rail element to it. If we go to the next page, the site plan, we are, because we're doing the second story element, which is the hatched area, the post-shade area is the one-story addition for the stairs. What we're doing, because of that square footage, we fall into tier 2. So we're, to comply with stormwater management, we're doing a seepage pit, which is, on in the front yard to the right of the addition. And the detail is on the lower right of your screen with 12 inches of topsoil and filter fabric to basically hide from view the pit. So the only, and the second story element is compliant to the setbacks. So we're not requesting any modifications. We go to page, the following page. Just above the garage, you can see the stairs, and that's a new man door coming into the den from the front yard, and the stairs going up to the second floor. The addition comes back to the back wall of bedroom number 1, where the front wall where the closets begin. If we go to page 3, the following page, that'll be the second floor. So we're not touching any of the existing roof except to provide a cricket where the addition will have water coming down to the wall where the master closet is. So we're proposing a master closet, master bath, master bedroom, and the stairs. At the top of the stairs, we'll have a door coming into the bedroom. And then looking west, we have the balcony that I was mentioning. That's 53 square feet. And it's compliant to the setback. The dash line is our setback, front setback. Because of the shape of the lot, we really only have front yard setbacks and a side yard setback. If we go to the next page. This is the elevations. So we've got the south elevation, which is the front over the existing front garage. Our north elevation is looking at it from what would be Santa Ana front elevation. The west elevation shows where the balcony is, which faces the street, the curve of the street, and then the east elevation shows from the side yard, looking at the 2-story. So we have a small window at the top of the stairs for light, and the other top window over the 1-story roof element that goes into the closet, the walk-in closet. We maintain a window and an existing window into the garage, and that's our new entrance door to the den. If we go to the next page, that's our existing elevations. So you can see we're not adding length to the building, just the 2-story element. If we go to the next page, that's our roof plan. So our 2-story roof matches in slope and pitch the existing roof element. Our plate is 8 foot, and you can see the cantilever for that deck. The overhang matches the existing as well. If we go to the next page, these are some of the details of the construction for the rail, the door, the windows, and the stairs, as well as our roof will be cathedral with a very low slope. It doesn't make too much sense to try to have an attic to that. So we've gone with a cathedral and Isoning insulation in 2x rafters. And the last page is just, the next page is some of the railing system information. I guess that about wraps it up for my presentation.
All right, thank you very much. Ms. Burkhart, did we get any public comment?
Thank you, Chair Miller. If you are attending by webinar and would like to comment on this item, please raise your hand by clicking the hand icon on your GoToWebinar control panel. while we wait for hands, Ms. Fennessy, did we receive any written correspondence for this item?
Thank you. We did not receive any written correspondence for this item.
Okay, it looks like we had a hand raised that is now down. Lindsay Johnson, I'm going to call on you just in case you did want to comment. I'll wait for your hand to go back up. I see a hand from Sandy Skinner. Let's see. I do not see audio capability for you, Sandy Skinner. Not sure how you're calling in. I'm getting not connected to audio. You might need to change in the audio drop-down portion of the GoToWebinar control panel. You might need to change the input. I don't believe there's a, let's see, sorry. A couple things going on here. Yes, okay, so Lindsay Johnson, I'm going to call on you. I'm going to unmute you. Can you an unmute request? Okay, your mic is live. You have 2 minutes to speak whenever you're ready.
Hello, board. Thank you for listening. I just wanted to make a comment. We live directly next door to this property, and the current house is set below ours. We are up above on a little bit of a hill, and so right now we see directly over the roof of this house, and the windows that are proposed on the back side of the second addition would look directly into our kitchen and living area. And our living room is floor to ceiling glass, so we have everything is wide open. So I just wanted to make that comment and say that a second story would be right in our our living space basically, and sight lines, and it would also block ocean views from this property as well. Thank you.
Okay, I also have a hand raised. I would like to call on Christiane Plumberger. Going to unmute you, send you an unmute request. All right, your mic is live. You have 2 minutes to speak.
Yes, thank you. I would make essentially the same points that Lindsay Johnson has just made. I am the owner of the property and she is the tenant. My concern really is the same as she expressed. In an email, I did request to see story polls so that it would actually be possible to visualize what happens when the second story goes up. I didn't get a response to that request, and I don't know what the process is going forward for the board to consider neighborhood environmental impacts. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Okay, I'm not able to connect Sandy Skinner to audio. However, they sent a comment in just saying we live on the street and are worried about the loss of the view of the mountains. So that's really the best I can do for Sandy Skinner's public comment. And there are no further hands raised. So I'll hand it back to you, Chair Miller, for questions.
All right, thank you. Vice Chair Kalas, do you have any questions, please?
I guess a question for the applicant would be if they considered placing the second story addition anywhere else on the residence. In other words, perhaps moving it further I'll call it north, based on your north elevation on the site plan. Because I think that most people are, anyhow, that's my question.
We did not consider moving the addition north because of the cathedral ceiling spaces that exist in those spaces. By doing it over the garage and the den and bedroom, that limits the area that will now be flat at 8 feet.
Okay.
That's
Okay,
it.
that makes sense. So the existing master bedroom is vaulted, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. I think that's my only question at this time. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Board Member Arakalian, do you have any questions, please?
No questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Board Member Klein, do you have any questions, please?
No questions.
All right, thank you. Board Member Motisha, do you have any questions, please?
Yes, could we look at the pictures again? And just kind of, I really didn't glance at, okay, there we see some mountains in the background there. Do we have any more pictures than that?
Yes.
That's looking up. This one. That's looking down, I guess, Santa Anita or whatever that street is. And from the street back up to the property.
Correct.
Is that area of town as you go off of the end of Vernon and turned to the west going up, is that high enough to get an ocean?
I believe
Sorry.
so. I believe so. And if you look at the site plan, their finished floor is about 10 to 12 feet above our finished floor.
Got it. Okay. So there is a view. There is a view over the end of Vernon, over down towards downtown, and you look out over the ocean and the islands. Is that correct?
I don't know about the islands. I know that that we have ocean views. I'm sorry, we have mountain views, and it looks towards the Mission. I haven't seen ocean views from this site.
Yeah. Okay. That answers my question. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Board Member Ziegler, do you have any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Mr. Esposito, do you have like a site section going through the different properties?
I do not.
Okay. All right, thank you. That'll be my only question at this time. Bringing it back to the board for comments. Vice Chair Kalas, do you have any comments, please?
Yeah, I guess I'll just restate something for the benefit of those that have called in, and I'll ask staff to correct me if I'm wrong. But my understanding is that it is not the purview or ability of this board to enforce private view rights unless there are specific view corridors that are on an adjacent parcel's deed, and those are written into their deed. Could you confirm that, Ms. Burkhart?
That's correct. The impacts to private views are not within the purview of this board.
Okay. And are they within anybody's purview in the city of Santa Barbara?
No, they are not.
Okay, so only public views are the purview of our planning department, for lack of a better way of saying it. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. So that aside, I can appreciate and commiserate with the next door neighbors because they've benefited from this view over the top of this house, and it's a lovely view. I drove this neighborhood, And you get a view right over the top of this house to sort of the backside of the mission and the seminary, out to the mountains and into town. It's really a very unique view. So I could see how it would be a sensitive issue for the neighbors. But this property owner does have the right to put an addition on. So that being said, I'm a little bit concerned about the addition. It feels, are we on questions or comments? We're on comments, right? We're on comments, right? Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Getting dinner time, and it feels like it's 10 o'clock at night because the time just changed. So circadian rhythm is all upset right now.
I'm sorry.
So, you know, I think this is a tough house to add to on a second floor addition because of the low pitch of the roof. This house is like your classic sort of mid-century low slung ranch house, although it doesn't have a lot of the clear story windows that some of those have. And so what happens is when you put a second floor on this, you don't have the benefit of the eaves dropping down and sort of masking the mass of that addition. So when I look at the east and west elevations, it's a little bit concerning because it just feels like such an addition as opposed to being something more integral that felt like it kind of grew up organically with the house. And I don't really know how to resolve that issue on this particular home, but it is a concern for me aesthetically. It feels top heavy and disjointed. That's my only comment.
All right, thank you. Board Member Arakalian, do you have any comments, please?
I do. Yeah, I've also been thinking about what Vice Chair Kalas commented on. I wonder if there's some kind of compromise to slightly push it back to make it look a little less top heavy from street view. I'm not sure if the architect can study that more to, if I understand the constraints with the roof lines and the cathedral ceiling below, but if there's some kind of compromise that we can come to that the architect can study that pushes push that south elevation and make it a little more aesthetic. Also, I'm on the cover sheet. I'm on page 1. I think it's, and then the photo there. I'm not sure if I think the architect should study the fenestration, if there's a way to make it a little more pleasing. I'm not sure how, but I think that just that one window kind of off, it feels a little off center. I'm not sure how exactly it can be improved, but I think it should be studied. Other than that, I am in support of the balcony. I think it's a modest one. I have driven by the property and do think it's of an appropriate size. And other than that, those are my comments.
All right, thank you. Board Member Klein, do you have any comments, please?
No comments.
All right, thank you. Board Member Motisha, do you have any comments, please?
Yes, this is an addition to a lot of houses that are spread out all over California that look just like this. 2-story, low slung roof. Can't get around that style that came out in the early 60s. And that's what you get, and that's what they got when they put 2 stories on that in the early 60s. And there's a lot of them all over Santa Barbara. If you really look for them, they're there. I, I used to deliver papers 65 years ago to this house. Santa Barbara News Press. I support the project. I'm sorry that it's interrupting the view of somebody behind them, but that's what's happening all over town. And when it's not in our preview to block somebody's want to put a second story on their house and end up in the front of somebody else's house. It's being done all over town. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Board Member Ziegler, do you have any comments, please?
Yeah, could we see a picture of the property again? And I'm just wondering, is there any space on the property to make this addition into a single level as opposed to a double level?
Mr. Esparza, how would you comment to that?
The only location that we have really is where we have our dedicated open yard.
Yes.
Because of the shape of the lot and the street, wraps around to Santa Ana, and then we have 2 front yards.
Yeah.
There's really the bottom left or southern, that's really the only place to do an addition, but that's our only open space.
Yep. And that's not big enough, I take it, right?
Well, no, we can't get rid of our open space. We need it.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay. Well, that was my assessment. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, my only comment is possibly maybe you thought of making the roof, the second story roof, a hip roof. I have seen it where they've put 2 styles of roofs where the first floor was gabled and the second floor roof was hip. That might soften the impact a little bit. You might want to look at that. The other thought is in the front elevation, adding shutters to that front window and maybe a planter box. The only danger with a planter box is if they plant plants and they die, it looks worse than just leaving it no planter box. But that might add a little charm and interest to the front elevation, make it a little more interesting. Those are my only comments. With that said, we're here
Would it be possible to extend the balcony railing? I mean, I actually think that would help it if the master bathroom could be rethunk and the balcony railing could extend. At least it would sort of reinforce the horizontality of the home. It's another thought. I don't know.
all right, they're here for project. They're requesting project design approval. If you feel they need to come back with changes, you can include that in your motion. Who would like to entertain a motion? And it's not going to be Leslie.
I will take a stab at it.
Okay.
I'd like to see this project come back before the full board for not concept approval today. We're looking at not project design and review today, but come back before us with following comments that kind of move fenestrations around the second floor to not make it look so bulky. Also extend, maybe redesign the location of or extend the balcony to not make it look so so bulky and in size, bulk, scale, sizable. Maybe change the roof to a same pitch, but make it a hip instead of a shed. And
gabled.
Sorry, instead of gabled. And yeah, it is what it is. That's my motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Would the maker of the motion be interested in suggesting adding shutters to the top second story window on the south elevations?
Yes. Or change the fenestration to a different design, either shutters or maybe two windows.
Okay.
That's the bedroom up there. Yeah. New ideas for fenestration. I included that in my
Okay.
proposal.
So did I have a seconder?
I second.
Do you accept those changes?
Yes.
All right. May I have a roll call, please? Or do you guys want the motion to be reviewed?
I'm fine with my motion.
If they can reread it, that'd be great.
Thank you. I have continue indefinitely to the full board with comments. The shutters or the fenestrations should be moved around on the second floor for bulk reasons. Extend the balcony. The applicant shall consider extending the balcony for bulk reasons. The applicant shall consider a hip roof pitch instead of a gable. And that's the motion.
Okay. Would the maker of the motion be interested in replacing the bulk reason for the balcony, but for a balance reason, not a bulk reason, but a balance reason?
Yes. Yes, definitely. Makes more sense.
Yeah, in the beginning of the motion kind of doesn't make sense. Can you I'm sorry, Ms. Finney, if you can read the first part about the fenestration, moving it around. What did you say?
Yes, so board member Motisha said that the fenestrations shall be moved around on the second floor for now balance and not bulk.
Makes sense to me.
Well, I'll let the architect use his creative juices to figure that one out. Okay. With that being, Ms. Nzueta, yes, did you have something you wanted to
Mr.
say?
Chair, sorry for the interruption, and I'm sorry that my image looks so dark. I have the lights on in my office, but it's dark, I guess, outside, or the camera's not cooperating. In any event, I just want to impress upon the maker of the motion and the board that the purpose of the motion is to give direction to the applicant on what he should bring back or what the board is looking for when they come back. So I just want to make sure that everybody is comfortable with the motion and what is expected. So, you know, if it is possible to add a little bit more clarity in terms of what needs to be restudied and what needs to be revised, that would, I think, help.
Thank you, Irma. I would like
motion. Let's ask Jose if he does understand our sorry.
Well, that's okay, Ms. Joe. What I was going to say about your first part of your thing, I think what you were trying to say was to study the fenestration on the south elevation so it gave it a more balanced look. Is that what you meant?
I was more or less referring to all the fenestration on the second floor, not only the south elevation, but anything, or also on the west elevation that we have a two-story element right there with no fenestration in any of it. I would like to leave it up to the architect and the designer to tell us if he does not understand what I was trying to say.
I believe I understand it. It's a matter of massaging the fenestrations and the roof line to create a little bit more balance.
Thank you, Jose.
Okay, very good. All right, I think that answers my concerns. So may I have a roll call, please?
Thank you. I'll start the roll call vote. Vice Chair Kawas,
No, and I'm happy to provide commentary as to why, which I think is usually desired. I think this parcel is large enough that this addition could be placed somewhere else. Or conversely, the garage could be converted and the garage could be relocated upslope. And it would result in the same square footage for the client or the applicant. They would still have a view over town from the existing floor level, and it would not impede the view of the neighboring parcel in terms of privacy issues and neighborhood compatibility. So there's quite a bit of available yard space downslope that's still within setbacks where something could happen on this parcel. So I'm not supporting the project.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Arkalian, or continue the roll call, sorry.
thank you. Board Member Arakelian,
Yes.
Board Member Klein,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
Board Member Ziegler, Board Member Ziegler, thank you. And Chair Miller.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 5-1.
All right, thank you. Appreciate your comments, Leslie. Okay,
Thank you, board members.
all right, you're welcome. I think that's it. I would request a 5-minute break. I kind of need to go take care of my plumbing.
Okay.
So let's see, it's 6:17. We could be back at 6:22.
Okay.
6:23.
All right.
925 Amino Road. This is a continued item. Project design review. Proposal to demolish an existing non-conforming two-story, 2,654 square foot single unit residence, 465 square foot garage, and construct a new two-story, 4,272 single unit residence with a 439 square foot attached garage. The project includes 40 cubic yards of grading within the footprint of the proposed structure and 50 cubic yards of grading outside the footprint. The proposed 4,112 square foot development on a 23,958 square foot parcel is 87% of the maximum guideline floor to lot area ratio. Project design approval is requested. Project does require neighborhood preservation findings, hillside design district, and slope lot findings and grading findings. The project was last reviewed on August 30th, 2021. Vice Chair Colas, do we have minutes from the previous meeting to read into the record?
Okay. Let's see. The motion was that the project would be continued indefinitely with the return to the full board for review with the following comments. The board generally finds the architectural nature of the project acceptable. The board supports the ridgeline height at which it has been placed in deference to the neighborhood. The board appreciates and would continue to support a more neutral color palette than what was being proposed, I think. The board generally likes the idea of metal shingle rather than the standing seam. The applicant shall reduce size of home to the 85% FAR guideline. The applicant may consider introducing 3 native oak trees in lieu of the proposed olive trees on the south side of the residence. The applicant shall provide a north-south section through the site that shows the relationship of the lower floor to the proposed hedge along Lower Jimeno Road once it has been reduced or cut down. The applicant shall study the nature of the stone on the lower level of the residence, with consideration being given to larger block that is more commensurate with the surrounding neighborhood and existing walls on the site. The applicant shall provide lighting information both for the residents and the property at large. The applicant shall provide an accurate color scheme on the south elevation. On the south elevation, the applicant shall study the relationship of the fenestration on the upper level relative to the lower level in an attempt to create a relationship between the two that is more regular or organized in nature. The motion was made by Colas, seconded by Motisha, and it passed 5-0-0 with Klein abstaining. The motion carried.
All right, thank you. And I believe Board Member Klein is abstaining for this as well. Is that correct? Okay. Mr. McLeod, if you could address our comments of the minutes directly, ease confusion.
Absolutely. I can do that for you guys this evening.
That'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, so if we zoom in, Alan McLeod, A34 Studio. Thanks for being so patient this evening, and I know your evenings are precious. So if we zoom in on that front rendering, this is just an evening rendering, and we'll get to the lighting overall, but this is just to demonstrate the low level of lighting that we use. Typically, we'll have the round lights are an architectural feature to indicate entry. The low lights to the left-hand side of that, we always hold our lighting down low. It just washes the ground. We have nothing up high. And then at the garage, we just have a light that is a down light just washing the garage area. So this kind of gives a general theme for how we approach lighting. And Katie will talk about the landscape in a few minutes after I'm done with my elements. So previously, we're at 97% FAR. Through some reworks of the upper level, we've taken some of the circulation spaces out between the garage. So we've reduced that FAR down to 87%. So we did a lot of work on getting that to work. So if we can go to sheet A100, please. Just to reorientate everybody. We've got a triangular site. We've got a very tough triangular setback system. So as we reduce the size of the house to get the FAR down, we moved it just about a foot to the east, to the west. I apologize, to the west. If we go to sheet 2.1, the floor plan. So to the left-hand side of the image, from the previous drawings, you can see that we've eliminated the circulation between the garage and the kitchen. That was where we pulled a lot of our floor square footage out of the overall, and we've reduced the overall home just slightly. We've just tucked it in to get it in conformance. So then if we turn to page 3.1, so we can start to look at the elevations. These elevations haven't changed apart from the next sheet, the next sheet, please, which was talking about the lower level fenestration. So as through the rework of the site reduction, you can see that we've started to align the windows down below. They've reduced in scale, so we also pulled them in a little bit so they relate to the larger windows above. If we then turn to the next sheet, please, 3.12. So the architectural palette, there was a lot of discussion last time about the stone. So if we can zoom in on the stone, we've kept it at a Santa Barbara sandstone. Originally, we had a very thin cut, but now we're looking at doing a nice running bond and a mixed running bond in a 2, 4, and 8 inch depth, so that we get some variation in the stone architecturally wrapping around, and it kind of ties to the site with all the sandstone that's located around the site. The wood siding is going to be a satin gray in a warm tone so that it sits nicely against the stone. And then we're looking at doing dark anodized window and door system. If we zoom out, there was a request for a color rendering of the overall building. So the south elevation is going to have a sandstone base, sandstone outdoor fireplace to the left-hand side. And then the satin wood element will run around the upper level. And then we can just pan up. We've got all the lighting identified. It's all down lighting, shielded, meets the night sky requirements, and is typically, apart from the door transitions, we hold all the architectural lighting down low, 18 inches off the grade. There was a request for a site section through the entire project. So if we go to sheet 4.01, the upper section, there's an upper section through the long portion of the house, so we can see it in relationship to the lower road with the hedge trimmed as it exists today. It was trimmed actually just a couple of weeks ago, so that we can see the view angles from the street. And that section will go all the way to the upper street if you want to pan to the other side. So the hedge at the top end of the top end of the property also. And then if we go to C1.01, based on the changes with the FAR and the material changes, we've updated the visuals from the street comparisons. So we can just run through this really quickly if you'd like. The upper is a existing and proposed side by side. If we pan down as we drive down the street, the existing garage to the right, the proposed garage new location, and stone element on the entry to the right, and down. And coming up the street, we see it sits in relationship to the existing and the proposed. If we move to the next sheet, these are the downhill as we come around the corner at Jimeno. If we zoom in on the top rendering, this is all color appropriate to the renderings. The front elevation. This is lacking the proposed hedge that would wrap in, but it gives you an idea of it sits quietly in the trees, in the color matching and the landscape elements that you get a snippet look into it. If we pan down. This was prior to the hedge reduction. The proposed to the right has the hedge had it all trimmed, and if we pan down to the next one, this is without the hedge. So you can kind of get an idea with the landscape as it sits proposed without a hedge. So I just wanted to give you guys that that view as well. So from that standpoint, I'll pass it over to Katie to just run through the landscape elements.
Yes, so the landscape has pretty much stayed the same. I'll walk through some of the comments and respond to them. If you could go to the next sheet, the preliminary landscape plan. So we studied changing those olives at the south elevation to oaks, but decided that we really want to keep the trees smaller to protect views. They have amazing views from the property. And also considering fire danger, and then also not a lot of plants grow under oak trees. Currently, there are 8 existing oak trees that we are protecting, and we felt that the olives tie better in with the new Mediterranean landscape that's being planted. And then the other thing I wanted to bring up was the low voltage lighting, the landscape lighting. So we're proposing just minimal path lighting and a few wall lights that would help light stairs just for safety reasons. The landscape lighting will be very minimal and dark sky compliant. And those are the updates on the landscape end.
All right, thank you. Bringing it back to the board. Ms. Burkhart, did we get any public comment?
Thank you, Chair Miller. There are currently no members of the public attending by webinar. Ms. Fennessy, did we receive any written correspondence for this item?
Thank you. We did not receive any public comment for this item.
All right, thank you. And with that, I'll hand it back to you, Chair Miller, for questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Vice Chair Kalas, do you have any questions, please? Yeah.
The only question I have is the outdoor chimney is sort of a standalone element, right? That does not engage with the, I'll call it the architecture proper, right? That just sort of sits by itself down at the lower level and then it runs up. Is that correct?
It actually carries the roof. It engages with the upper roof. It's part of my structural system.
Okay, so I need to look at the upper floor then, the upper floor level. That was the only question I had.
All right, thank you. Board Member Arkalian, do you have any questions, please?
No questions, thank you.
All right, Board Member Klein, Board Member Motisha, do you have any questions, please?
No questions.
Okay, thank you. Sure?
Yes, sure.
Okay. Board Member Siegel, do you have any questions?
Could you show us a picture of how that roof would look and how it would play in? It doesn't look like the view you have now shows the roof. Is there any other view which would show the roof?
On the elevations, if we go to proposed elevation west on sheet 3.10, and that'll answer Leslie Kales's question, and she'll see how it engages with the roof. So it's a simple pitched shed roof that runs across the entire length of the house.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. To follow up on the question, you have that site section showing the upper and lower streets. Can I see that again? Yeah, if you can show the whole. So it looks like, based on this, you don't really see the roof. It's what I'm saying is you don't see it like the surrounding homes don't see a big flat roof area, right?
No, they don't.
It's pretty hidden. Okay. Looks that way. All right. That's my only question. I'll bring it back to the board for comments. Vice Chair Collas, do you have any comments, please?
I appreciate the applicant's responsiveness, and I think the project has really, I think it's it was great to begin with, but I think it's, like come a long way, and I'm pleased with what I see and appreciate the fact that you brought the FAR down. Those are my only comments.
Thank you. Board Member R. Killian, do you have any comments, please?
I agree with Vice Chair Collas. I'm looking at the motion, and I appreciate the applicant's responsiveness and providing all the information, especially the color palette and how the colors seen along the elevation per the plans. I do like the stone. I do like the applicant's proposed stone pattern and the roof, the Tesla roof alternative. I'm in support of the project. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Board Member Motisha, do you have any comments, please?
Yes, I think you've come back with something that's, as Board Member Collas stated, very, very excellent and much better than what we were looking at before, especially the window between the new stone design and the window from the second story to the first story, and how you related the windows really improved the project, and it ties very nice. It looks very nice, and I think it fits our criteria. I will totally support the project. Thank you.
Board Member Ziegler, do you have any comments, please?
Yeah, I have to say that I think his presentation was absolutely phenomenal. I think the idea of showing before and after photographs like that just really gives you a picture of what the house is going to look like, even though it was hidden by shrubbery. But I think it's a great job. It looks great, and I'm all for it. Thank you.
All right,
And I think we should make his presentation required for every other one that comes before us. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Mr. Ziegler. The only thing I could say, it costs money to have you do these 3D presentations, and I don't know if clients anyway. But good point, valid point. Yeah, I'll just echo what everyone else has said on the board. With that being said, would someone like to entertain a motion? They're here for project design approval. If you would like to grant that, please include that in your motion.
I'll make a motion for project design approval.
All right, Leslie.
With the comments that the board is very appreciative of the applicant's response to our previous direction, we would request that the project return to consent calendar for final, and specifically request that a lighting landscape plan be included with those drawings. And in support of our PDA, make the following findings: that the proposed grading will not significantly increase water siltation in or decrease the water quality of streams, drainages, or water storage facilities into which the property drains. And the proposed grading will not cause a substantial loss of southern oak woodland habitat because they are retaining all of the oaks on site with the exception of the one that is in poor condition. We can also make hillside design and slope lot findings because the project sits nicely into the natural topography and protects it. It's low slung and horizontal in nature, so it does not affect the ridge line of the hillside. And the building scale is in keeping with the surrounding neighborhood, and the finished materials used help to minimize the visual appearance and effect on the hillside. Which is also to say that it's consistent in its appearance with the neighborhood. It's compatible in its bulk, size, and scale, specifically with the reduction in the FAR down to 87%. And there are qualitative architectural materials used in terms of the stone plinth on the residence, as well as the vertical wood siding and the proposed Tesla shingles. There are no specimen trees that are being removed, with the exception of the one that is in poor condition and for which we have an arborist report, so there's no trees affected. And the project does not have any deleterious effect on public health, safety, and welfare. It maintains good neighborhood guidelines because it's low slung and doesn't affect anybody's views. And it also does not affect public views.
All right, thank you very much. Do I have a second for the motion, please?
I'll second it.
Thank you. May I have a roll call, please?
Thank you. I'll now start the roll call vote. Vice Chair Kalas,
Yes.
Board Member Ara Kellen,
Yes.
Board Member Klein abstains, Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
Board Member Ziegler,
Yes.
and Chair Miller.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you very much, guys. Have a good evening.
Thank you. There's a 10-day appeal period for this project.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I just wanted to clarify for the record that for Katie Klein, that vote would be for absent because she was not part of the board at the time.
Oh, right. Thank you.
Today, I mean, okay. So that would be an absence.
You sure? Todd abstains? Sorry, Irma.
No, yes, I'm sure, because she is actually representing the applicant for this item. So she's absent from the meeting for this portion.
Okay, well.
Okay, just so that for the record, I will check with the city attorney's office, but I'm pretty certain that will be the way
Yeah,
we.
yeah, okay, please do, because okay. Thank you. I think your motion passed. And that concludes the Single Family Design Board for November 8th. Thank you very much.